Oh my god, the Roundtable is back. Thank you for tuning in. It's been a few weeks, so you know we got a shitload to break down. UFC on Fox 11. We haven't done a Roundtable since then. We're going to briefly talk about Fabricio Brown, Tate Carmouche, that whole card. Of course, UFC 172, Jones and Teixeira. We got a docket of news to talk about from the week, and we got to break down UFC Fight Night 40 this Saturday, UFC 173. Let's do the damn thing. That's right. Thank you for tuning in to the MMA Roundtable. As always, you can listen to all the podcasts associated with the MMA Podcast on iTunes by visiting the MMApodcast.com, clicking the little iTunes tab toward the top. That'll take you directly to the iTunes page where you can subscribe. Or you can listen to us on YouTube. Pretty much the same thing. Just go to the MMApodcast.com. You'll see a little tab that says YouTube. Click it. It's not rocket science, people. The same thing with Twitter, Facebook, the MMA Podcast. We make it pretty damn easy around here. And we don't have a lot of people, but it's still a stacked lineup because both the people opposite me on today's roundtable really do know their shit. And they're at opposite ends of the damn country, as we were talking about before the show. The first one, P Money. What the hell's going on, dude? Where do we find you on Twitter, and how the hell are you?
I'm doing beautiful, Jake. It's always great to be doing the roundtable. You can find me on Twitter at Sweet Pappy Jones, Instagram at Sweet Pappy Jones. Follow your boy, follow the whole crew, and excited to break down these cards with you gentlemen.
That's right. Follow him at Sweet Pappy Jones. The other guy is known worldwide. He has tens of millions of Twitter followers. He's the best Jew in the business. He took a little break from the podcast game. I hope we've got him around more often, because honestly, the guy breaks down cards even better than I could imagine doing it. It's Ross Finkelstein. Where do we find you? How the hell are you, buddy?
This is my MMA Roundtable debut, so I'd like to thank you all for having me. I like being here. You can catch me on Twitter at Ross Finkelstein, E before the L. I am back in the podcasting game. Tonight, I return to the Word on the Street, where I will decimate Ramses and send him back across the border. It's good to be here. Let's kick it off.
Let's kick it off. And really quickly, if you do want to be a part of the show, it is the roundtable, so whether you want to call in and just give us a hot take, whether you want to call in and be a part of the roundtable, you can call in. The phone number is 213-457-3380, or you can Skype us at the MMA Podcast and join in on the fun. Let's get straight to it. We'll try and fly through these cards as we get a bunch to break down. But UFC on Fox 11, that's going to be the first thing we talk about. It was April 19th, obviously a couple weeks ago, but we haven't done a roundtable since. Thought we'd still break it down. Let's break that huge block of fights down first on UFC Fight Pass and Fox Sports 1. There were 9 fights, so pardon me if I get a little verbose here, but what stood out to you? The prelims on UFC Fight Pass: Derek Lewis defeating Jack May via TKO at heavyweight, Mirsad Bektic over Chaz Skelly, Dustin Ortiz over Ray Borg at flyweight. Those second 2 fights were decisions. That did it for the Fight Pass. Fox Sports 1, we saw 6 fights. Jordan Meehan, heavily favored, defeating Hermani Perpetao via split decision. KO Magalhães with a beautiful TKO over Luke Zacharick. Alex White KOing Estevan Payan at featherweight in the first round. Jorge Masvidal and Thiago Alves winning unanimous decisions over Pat Healy and Seth Basinski, respectively. And, of course, finally, Khabib Nurmagomedov. We cannot say enough good things about this guy. Goes in, Ross and I were talking about it the other day, and he's actually on the line, so I won't steal his breakdown of the fight, but we all just got nothing but good things to say about Khabib. Let's stick to the order just for simplicity's sake. The way it goes on my Skype, we'll go P Money and then Ross. These 9 fights, you got a lot to talk about. You don't need to touch on every one, but what did you think of it? What stood out? Pat, Project Pat, what did you think?
Homie, it's just been an avalanche of fights over the past couple weeks. Going back to the UFC on Fox card, there was a lot of great shit from the prelims on Fight Pass and Fox Sports 1. Some of the ones that really stood out, of course, RDA versus Nurmagomedov. That was just a crazy battle, a prison fucking of a grappling match on Khabib's part. And it was really good. Alex White, he really impressed. A guy who's undefeated in pretty much every combat sport he's ever tried. That's always a very interesting prospect, especially with the performance he put on against a veteran like Esteban Payan, who's competed in a bunch of different organizations. So there was a lot of good stuff on the Fox 11 prelims.
Go ahead, Ross.
My apologies there. Yeah, we got to go back a couple weeks here, but just starting with the Fight Pass prelims, I mean, they kicked it off with a heavyweight fight, which we all knew was going to be absolutely horrible, and it was. I'm not even really going to touch upon that. The 2 fights that I really liked, though, were the flyweight fight between Dustin Ortiz and Ray Borg, and the featherweight fight between Mirsad Bektic and Chaz Skelly. Those were both fantastic fights. Both went to decision. I think Ray Borg, not enough people are talking about him. I thought he beat Dustin Ortiz. It was a very close fight, but I thought he beat Dustin Ortiz, and he's a young guy, and I think that's a name we got to look out for in the flyweight division. Mirsad Bektic was going into this fight was one of the top featherweight prospects in the world. A lot of people have him as the number 1 featherweight prospect in the world, and he got caught with a knee, I believe it was. I think it was an illegal knee, which had him all kinds of hurt, and it made it a closer fight than it should have been, but both guys really impressive. Fox Sports 1, I mean, the thing that really stood out to me, I'm just going to talk about it. Khabib Nurmagomedov, guy's 22-0 now, doesn't get the respect he deserves. He should be fighting for the title. Somehow, Gilbert Melendez has that title shot, and we're not going to see that for a while. But the dude goes in there against a high-level grappler in Rafael dos Anjos, someone who is top 5 in the world, one of the absolute, just perennial top 10 contender, top 5, like I said, and made him look like he was the lowest level of MMA. Like, he absolutely dominated him. To go in there and dominate a guy who, in his last fight, beat up Cowboy, who obviously we all say great things about Cowboy, and Cowboy on the main card looked fantastic. Rafael dos Anjos beat up Cowboy badly. I mean, it was a close fight because the 3rd round was a little close, but for 2 rounds he destroyed him, and Khabib Nurmagomedov made Rafael dos Anjos look amateur. I don't know what else he has to do to get a title shot, but he's not going to get one for a while, like I said before. I don't even know what to say because all I'm thinking about is Khabib Nurmagomedov, and I'm rambling on and on. Jake, save me, please.
Yeah, really quickly before we move on to the main card, it brings up an interesting question, and we'll touch on it really quickly before we get to wins by Romero and Cerrone. Who next for Habib? Because a lot of people look at it and say this guy is a future champion. The only, like, I have heard multiple people say the only person at lightweight they can see giving Habib issues is the current champion Pettis. So what next for him? Should he get a title fight? The winner of Pettis Melendez? You look at the current rankings. Apparently, he was offered a fight in July, but he had to turn it down due to religious reasons. I believe Ramadan going on. So you can't really hate someone for taking time off because of religion. But you look at the current rankings. Nate Diaz actually dropped recently from the UFC's lightweight rankings. You have Pettis as the champ, then Melendez, then just reading straight down the list: Benson, Josh Thompson, Habib, Cerrone, RDA, who he obviously just beat. It seems like Thompson, Henderson, or a title fight are like the only reasonable options. Pat, what next for the Russian?
Dude, I have no clue who's healthy, who doesn't have a match, who's ready to go. TJ Grant was supposed to get a title fight way back when, but he's been shelved for Lord knows what the countdown is looking like on that. That's at least over a year now, I'm willing to wager. I'd love to see that fight, TJ Grant versus Nurmagomedov, if Grant could get healthy. If that weren't viable, I really have no fucking clue. I don't think Nate Diaz wants to come out for that fight. Perhaps Cerrone. Cerrone's always down, but I think we all kind of get a feeling how that fight would go, not in Cowboys' favor. So I mean, fuck, it's one of those rock and a hard place situations. Of course, he should be fighting for the title. That's just fucking obvious to anybody, but I don't even know who the fuck. Oh yeah, Pettis and Thompson. That's on the shelf until at least December, till that fight goes down. So you got to give him somebody in the. Yeah, Pettis Melendez. I don't even know what the fuck they're doing these days. The tough holding shit up. They're just stagnating divisions, and but that's a whole nother subject. Anyhow, yeah, they're just holding belts hostage for years at a time. It's pretty fucking stupid. They should have people fighting for that shit. But yeah, you got to give them somebody in the meantime. Fucking, I don't know. What do you guys think,
Ross?
Yeah, there really isn't anyone. There really isn't anyone, at least at the top of the division. If they're going to give him someone, it's going to be someone lower down. Ben Henderson is supposed to fight Rustam Khabilov, who's a teammate of Khabib Nurmagomedov. If Ben Henderson beats Khabilov, I think it would make sense to put Khabib and Henderson in a fight, because that'll take place probably around October or November, which timing works out perfect. Khabib wins that fight. He's got a title shot against the winner of Pettis and Melendez. If Khabilov beats Henderson, which actually I do think is going to happen, I don't think those two will fight each other, so there's just more problems in the division. So it leaves someone lower down, like a Michael Johnson or a Bobby Green, one of those guys. But then you kill off a guy who's rising up the division, which you don't want to do because you want to make as many contenders as possible. So there really just is no clear-cut who's going to fight Khabib next. He said he's taking time off. He'll be back. He wants to fight sometime at the end of August or September, or at least not until then. So I don't know. It's too tough to pick.
Yeah, he sort of has two things going against him. The first thing being that currently the 155-pound division is very cluttered. You know, you mentioned we probably won't see the title fight for another 6 months minimum. You know, Pettis Melendez isn't going to be until December. They're going to be coaching tough. Benson fighting Khabilov, and that probably would make the most sense. I believe they're fighting in about a month, early June. Thompson seems to only be interested in a fight against one of the Diaz brothers, even though that tweet he sent out was totally a hack. Apparently, Cerrone versus Miller. That fight was recently slated, and we actually will talk about it soon. But he not only needs to deal with a very cluttered lightweight division, but no one wants to fucking fight him. I mean, Thompson could be calling out Habib, and a win against him would do more for his placing in the division than a win against either Diaz. But I don't think Thompson wants him. I don't think either the Diaz brothers want him. I don't think Cerrone wants him. I think everyone looks at Nurmagomedov as a guy who doesn't matter how slick you think your jits are. Dos Anjos had super slick jits. It doesn't matter how good your striking is. This guy is going to step in the ring and just completely neutralize you. We will move on to the main card of that UFC on Fox 10 card that I'm scrambling to pull back up and find on Wikipedia. There it is. We have 2 cards we're going to break down on the main card before we break down the main and co-main event individually. Yoel Romero, the wrestler, the only man to beat Cael Sanderson twice, steps in. And he is a little bit older, but you wouldn't know it. He looks excellent. Gets a unanimous decision against Brad Tavares, 30-27 across the board. And Donald Cerrone stepping in against Edson Barboza. We knew this fight was going to be fireworks. Cerrone landed a punch that didn't look like, a huge knockout blow or anything, but it was enough to crumple Edson for a split second. And probably the most beautiful thing of that fight, the thing everyone was talking about, is how quick Cerrone made the transition from dropping him with the straight hand, and then in what seemed like a fraction of a second, he goes from standing in front of him to having his back, sinking in the choke, and winning the fight in the first round via rear naked choke. What did you think of Romero and Cerrone's wins? And we may as well touch on Cerrone Miller now too, because we know that that's going to be Donald's next fight, another barn burner. We all knew going in that Barboza Cerrone was going to be a very fun fight. And I think we've got that same feeling for Cerrone's next fight against Miller. So what did you think about Cerrone and Romero's wins? And quick prediction for Donald Cerrone and Jim Miller. P-Money?
I thought Romero, I believe this was his most impressive performance in the UFC to date. His first win in the UFC and his first professional win, not by knockout, and it was the best he's looked. He really incorporated that wrestling background. He showed off that high-level pedigree finally, and he just dominated this fight. Brad Tavares, he's always game, and he just put it on Brad Tavares like nobody ever has. It was a fantastic performance from Romero. I'm fucking sold on this guy, especially after that performance. Cerrone, man, let me just say this. Cerrone inside the distance was plus 240. That shit cashed, homie. That was just a beautiful performance from Cerrone. Oh, my God, I can't believe that shit was – oh, bookmakers, thank you. Anyhow, no, that was a good performance from Cerrone. He came out, he lit up he lit up – oh, man, I'm blacking out. Barboza, after he was getting tagged himself, it was a good comeback from Cerrone. He hasn't looked his sharpest lately, but – then again, the way he snatched that back up and sunk in that choke after the slightest scent of blood, that was pretty slick. So you got to give it up to Cerrone. Good performances all the way around on those 2 fights. And as for Miller Cerrone, yeah, that's going to be a sick fight no matter how that one plays out.
As far as Yoel Romero and Brad Tavares go, like Patrick said, Yoel Romero, even though he didn't finish, he had his best performance to date in pretty much his entire mixed martial arts career. He finally showcased his wrestling. I mean, you watch all his fights to date, he hasn't really shown that he's a wrestler. I mean, he's got such a high-level pedigree. He's an Olympic wrestler. He beat Cael Sanderson twice. You wouldn't know it. I mean, he was taken down by Derek Brunson. He was taken down by Honey Marquez. So you look at those fights and you go, wait, he's an Olympic wrestler, but then finally in this fight, he puts it together and he shows what he's capable of. He's got that power, he's got speed, he's got aggression, he's got cardio, he's got the wrestling. He has everything. The only thing he doesn't have on his side is age, so they got to hurry it up with him. He's 37 years old. Bring him up the ladder, give him top 10 guy next, top 5 guy next. Let's move it along. We need contenders here. As far as Donald Cerrone and Edson Barboza goes, This was ending in a finish one way or another. Both guys are incredible finishers. Donald Cerrone has had his ups and downs, but he seems to have finally hit his stride again on a 3-fight win streak now. He dropped him with a jab. Edson Barboza was making those excuses like, oh, I blinked, so I didn't see the jab, and it dropped. No, you got hit, and you went down, and that's what happened, and you got choked, and stopped complaining. Cerrone looked fantastic, and the fight with Jim Miller is going to be awesome. I don't know who's going to win, because once again, you throw two high-level guys in there, anything can happen. Who knows? Both guys have had their ups and downs. Like I said before with Cerrone, he's had his ups and downs. Jim Miller's had his ups and downs. So I can't wait. I'll be there live to see that one, too. I keep forgetting Atlantic City at the Rebel. So I'm looking forward to that.
Fuck, that sounds like a lot of fun. You got to bring Yao with you. Take a bunch of ridiculous pictures while you're there. We will move on.
I'll put him on his leash.
Hell yeah, put Yao on the damn leash. We'll move on to the damn co-main event. Miesha Tate taking on Liz Carmouche. A lot of people thought this was going to be a very one-sided fight. I think Tate was a huge favorite. I was saying that that Liz was going to go in there and try and make this a dogfight, and that's exactly what she did. Wasn't able to win, but made it closer than a lot of people thought it'd be. Tate ends up winning the unanimous decision, 29-28. What do you think of the fight? What next for Miesha Tate? I'd like to see a rematch between Tate and Sarah Kaufman. I actually think Kaufman would win that. Kaufman on a decent streak of her own. I'm rallying for Kaufman as Tate's next opponent. Tate, I don't know. She's sort of in a weird spot, sort of like a Junior Dos Santos spot. She does have a lot of talent. If it wasn't for her prior title shots, the UFC would probably be scrambling to give her a title shot. But somebody who has 2 losses against the current champ, you're going to be put in the slow lane as far as getting another shot. But what did you think of the co-main event, Patrick? And who next for Miesha Takedown or Cupcake, whatever the fuck her nickname is, Tate?
Jake, I felt this was a pretty good fight. It was more of a grappling match, as we all kind of expected it to be. It was fairly entertaining, though. It was high level, good exchanges. It was a super close fight. Again, styles make fights, so Carmouche had a good style matchup with Miesha Tate. This didn't belong in co-main event, let alone on the main card. Rafael Dos Anjos and Khabib Nurmagomedov absolutely should have been co-main event over this all day long. But it was a decent fight. As for who Miesha Tate should get next, I could have sworn there was an announcement for either Tate or Carmouche's next opponent that had just come out recently, and I just can't get it off the top of my head. But yeah, like you mentioned, Rousey having lost to her twice, she's not going to get back at that anytime soon. Plus, she has lost to Zingano as well. But with her out of the picture, who knows how much of an effect that has on her standings as of right now. So really, gosh, I could see her taking on maybe an Amanda Nunes. I think that'd be a pretty solid matchup.
Yeah, this fight, Miesha Tate just did enough to get by. She had a very, very tough fight, and it's nothing that's going to get her back to a title shot anytime soon, especially losing to Ronda Rousey twice. She's now 1-2 in the UFC. Still hasn't had her little impressive moment. I don't think she should get someone coming off of a win. I think she should be paired up with someone coming off of a loss, someone like Jessica Ai or Sarah McMahon. I think Sarah McMahon actually would be a perfect opponent for Miesha Tate. I think Sarah Kaufman should fight Kat Zingano next. Sarah Kaufman looked fantastic in her last fight, and she had a close fight, which is now no longer a loss. It's a no contest against Jessica Ai. Somehow I turned this into Sarah Kaufman's moment instead of Miesha Tate's moment. But yeah, I think Sarah Kaufman should fight Kat Zingano and not Miesha Tate. And Kat Zingano actually announced today that she's been cleared to start training, so she is ready. she's ready to go. So is Anderson Silva. Just side notes. Jake, go ahead.
Yeah, it's awesome fucking news. Honestly, in my opinion, the best fighter at each of their respective weight classes without a belt. Silva, everyone knows his name, one of the greatest of all time. But Kat coming back, I think Kat should get an immediate title shot after Alexis Davis does. I mean, Kat is the number one ranked chick. She beat Tate. She should have been on Tough. And couldn't be a nicer fighter. To touch on what Pat said, I think you may have been thinking of Miesha Tate. She called out Gina Carano. Obviously, nothing's official, but she said something along the lines of she would like Carano to be her next opponent. And I did forget to mention that Sarah Kaufman, I want to see Kaufman Tate next. Kaufman actually a couple days ago, got in a car wreck. Her car looked smashed up pretty bad. She said she was okay, but obviously, things like whiplash and the sort, you gotta give a little bit of time before you know what happened there. We'll swiftly move on from the Tate Carmouche fight to a fight that I'm still thinking about. I mean, Jesus Christ, Fabricio Verdum impressed the hell out of me. Going into his fight against Travis Brown, the main event on UFC on Fox 11 in Orlando, Florida. Everyone's saying, if Verdum wants to win, he's got to bring the fight to the mat. Because Brown's a better striker and Verdum's a better grappler. That's going to be that. I did say, I don't want to say I called exactly what was going to happen, but I did say that people were not only underrating Brown's grappling skill, but Verdum's striking skill. I mean, we know Roy Nelson is someone who just beats people up around the ring, and Fabricio had his way with Roy, just boxing the shit out of him. Sort of did the same thing to Travis Brown. Shocked a lot of us. Brown was someone we thought would easily have the advantage standing up, and it was about as one-sided as you can get without knocking a guy out. I mean, he was clowning Brown, talking about his cut, punching him in the cut on his face. Just it was a real career performance for Fabricio. And it gives him a title shot now. Another title shot we're going to see late in the year, Velasquez versus Verdum. They're going to be coaches on Tough Latin America, which is going to be perfect. It's funny, even though Kane is Mexican-American and Fabricio is Brazilian, Fabricio actually speaks better Spanish than Kane. He is a fluent speaker of Spanish, actually works as a analyst and commentator for the Spanish UFC programs, so that is going to be an amazing fight. Both of them are respectful guys. I don't think we see sort of a contentious season like Tough Brazil 3 or anything like that. But what did you think of the fight? Just a one-sided beatdown. I think the judges' scorecards came back 49-46 and 50-45 on the other two. So of 15 combined judged rounds, Travis won one. What did you think of the fight, and what do you think Fabricio's chances are against the current heavyweight champion Kane? Because that's the next title fight we're going to get. Patrick?
I think after this performance by Fabricio Verdum, you have to give him a decent shot against Kane. Certainly better than any chance any of us would have given him prior to this performance against Brown. His striking, like you mentioned, looked really good, and it had been looking better during his second run in the UFC with his performances over Russell, like you had mentioned, Big Country. He's been tearing it up with the strikes. We all know about his ground credentials, so there's no question about that. The man fucking submitted Fedor Emelianenko, first dude to give him the legit loss, not to mention just the pure BJJ grappling credentials. It was a fantastic fight, 5 rounds. Dana White was kind of bitching. When the fuck doesn't he bitch? He was bitching about Fabricio not getting the finish against Brown. And I kind of get the feeling that he potentially could have finished that off. But then again, I mean, Brown, he's young, he's tough. those Hawaiians are just tough as hell. You can't count them out, and I think we all knew how good Verdum was coming into this fight. I don't even know if it's that. It's just that Brown had looked so good. His career and what he had been doing lately, it was just looking like he was on another level. He'd never been taken down. Those elbows to the side of the head, he was knocking everybody out like that. He was just looking like such a beast. I don't know if Fabricio undersold as much. I think people just may have gotten caught up in the hype of Travis Brown, and with good cause. And yeah, so I like Verdum's chances against Kane. Stature-wise, he's a lot bigger. He does have those BJJ grappling credentials, and he's got the knees as well, so he can mix that in, being the taller opponent against Kane. And if he gets taken down, again, he does have the BJJ credentials to potentially stifle some of Kane's groundwork. So, yeah, it's going to be great. Again, it's unfortunate. We've got another season of Ultimate Fighter holding up another belt. But, yeah, it'll be a great fight whenever the fuck it happens, if it ever does.
Going into this fight, I was a member of the Travis Brown hype train. And I believe Brown was going to destroy Fabricio Verdum. Then I had to eat my words when Verdum absolutely destroyed Travis Brown. Travis Brown started the fight strong. He dropped Fabricio Verdum. He looked like he was about to finish him. And then from there, it was just all Fabricio Verdum, just showcasing a much more diverse striking game. Just bullying Travis Brown, absolutely bullying him, making him just look horrible, making him look like Phil DeFreeze, not Travis Brown. So credit to Fabricio Verdum, because he surprised the hell out of every single one of us. He came in tremendous shape. I mean, he was like 10, 15, 20 pounds lighter than he usually is. He was ripped. He's taking Cain Velasquez very seriously, and that's a good thing. At the same time, I do not think he can beat Cain Velasquez. I think Cain Velasquez is on a whole nother level. I think you can't bully Cain Velasquez like you can bully Travis Brown, Fabricio Verdum. You're not going to beat him. I don't think there's any chance. I think it's going to be Cain by knockout. Business as usual.
Yeah, I definitely think Cain wins too, but it's going to be very interesting because Cain's sort of MO is take you down and beat the shit out of you. And Fabrizio is not necessarily a guy you want to take down. Cain might really need to keep the fight standing, because with other opponents where he just knows to take him down and beat the snuff out of him, like I said, Fabricio has one of the most dangerous, if not the most dangerous guard in mixed martial arts. You take him down, it's not just a matter of beating him up. Actually, if Cain were to take him down, I would worry more about Cain, because Verdum is just so skilled off of his back. Let's switch gears. UFC on Fox 11, we broke it down. Let's move to UFC 172. We'll try and break it down in a speedy sort of fashion. Just like the last one, we're going to start off with the Fight Pass and Fox Sports 1 prelims. Chris Beal, beautiful flying knee that won him a $50,000 bonus on the UFC Fight Pass. Danny Castillo KOing Charlie Brenneman. Should have gotten him a bonus. I'm sure he got a little paper backstage, but he didn't get an official bonus. Bitch Kohea defeating Jessamine Duke and calling out the four horsewomen in the process, holding up four fingers afterwards and using her other hand to put one of the fingers down, sort of like one down, three to go, which I think is stupid and smart at the same exact time. I think it's stupid because you're messing with the wrong group of chicks. I'm a big fan of the four horsewomen, but it's smart because she is she's doing exactly what Chael does. She's talking, she's making people talk about her with what she's doing, building up her rep. One of the four horsewomen is is the champ. So, sort of like Davis said on the UFC 172 conference call, you get to talk nowadays, and hopefully Bitch Kohea talking doesn't put her in the same situation it put Phil Davis. We will talk about that fight a little later, but Bitch Kohea getting the win against Jessamine Duke. Takanori Gomi defeating Isaac Valley Flag, or boy Allen, was really pumped about that, winning the unanimous decision 29-28 across the board. And finally, Joseph Benavidez making Tim Elliott tap with his damn feet. First round guillotine choke, 4 minutes in. What'd you guys think of the fights? B-Money?
This fight, as good as UFC on Fox 11 was, the entire UFC 172 card just completely shit all over it. It was such an epic night of fights. Literally, from the jump flying knee in the first fight, it was great. Chris Beal getting it done, Danny Castillo getting it done, Betch Kahea. It was just fantastic. It was one of those fights where it was one of those fight cards where every fight was so good. It was just like the jump off the couch, screaming at the TV, adrenaline rush from every single fight was so good that it made me somehow just black out and forget every single fight that came before it, just because it was too much fight awesomeness, really. Jesus Christ, Gomi, looking solid. It was just a fantastic series of finishes. I can't even remember all the ones we were just talking about. Although Betch Kahea, apparently she is signed up to take on Shayna Baszler in her next fight. Speaking of the whole four horsewomen feud or whatever that's all about. So kind of an interesting move there, but fantastic prelims to set up the pay-per-view portion of the card.
Yeah, we started the night off with Chris Beal and his ninja ways. I remember flipping out. I started texting you, Jake, just flipping out at that.
I think I got 10 texts saying, wow, 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 wow.
Yeah, something like that. Danny Castillo also, I did the same thing, because just immediately you start off the night with just two huge knockouts. Danny Castillo killing Charlie Brenneman, absolutely just killing him. I'm pretty sure Charlie Brenneman is dead. Betch Kohea, and Jessamine Duke went the exact way that I thought it would. Jessamine is just not that good. She's pretty good. She's just not that good. She's the weak link of the four horsewomen. And Betch Kohea is doing a great job marketing herself with the whole four horsewomen angle, because you beat her entourage, eventually you'll get a shot at Ronda. So she's playing it smart. Takanori Gomi and Isaac Valley Flag was a fun fight. You can always expect a fun fight when Takanori Gomi's in there and when Isaac Valley Flag's in there. So you put them together and you get a war. Of course, Allen was happy about that, like you said, Jake. And then Joseph Benavidez and Tim Elliott. Poor Joseph Benavidez. He will destroy everyone not named Demetrius Johnson. He is the gatekeeper of the division. Although, actually, a fun fight would be him and Dodson. I really want to see Dodson and Joseph Benavidez. I want to see Dodson fight Mighty Mouse again, but I want to see Dodson and Joseph Benavidez. Who is the true number 2 in the division? That's what that determines.
Yeah, that would be a fucking hell of a war. And Benavidez, like I said, that group of people, which it seems like the list just grows and grows and grows. The group of people who are still legitimate contenders in their division, but have multiple losses to the current champion. I can't think of an exhaustive list now, but obviously you've got Benavidez, Tate, Dos Santos, Anderson Silva. I mean, You've got a lot of people who it's sort of weird. Do you give them that third shot? Faber, another one. Mendez, we'll see if he gets added to that list or not in August. We will break that fight down a little bit. But let's get to the main card of UFC 172. Sort of like the last one, let's start with the first few fights of the main card. Max Holloway over Andre Fili. Holloway, he's young. He very well could be a guy in the next 5-6 years turns into a perennial top 5 featherweight, defeating Andre Fili, who had to tape his earlobes because he had gauges. Another reason why getting a gauge hearing just seems fucking silly. Wins the third round guillotine choke submission. Miller also gets a guillotine choke submission, this one in the first round, and this one puts Yancey to sleep. Sort of like, I think it was Rogan saying, yeah, I've never seen someone tap with their feet, talking about Benavidez Elliott. He's also never seen someone celebrate while their opponent is unconscious on top of him. Miller's sort of lying on his back, looking up, pumping his fists and everything, while the ref works to take the limp body of Yancey off of Jim Miller as he goes to regain consciousness. And another sub, the fourth submission in a row, which we've got to get our stat people to look back and see how many times we've seen 4 straight submissions. This one may be the most beautiful of all, an inverted triangle Kimura Luke Rockhold pulled off on Tim Boetsch, just showing some excellent jits, and Luke Rockhold, fucking dime piece, winning the middleweight match. What did you think of all these fights? What next for Luke Rockhold? What stood out? P-Money?
Jesus Christ, so much goodness. Fili Holloway, that was a great fight. Both have a lot of potential. Young dudes, up-and-comers. Fili with the alpha male camp. Holloway, he's already got a gang of UFC experience at his young age. He keeps looking better, and he's been fighting tough competition. I mean, his only losses are to friggin' who do we got? Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor. I mean, excuse me for throwing Conor McGregor up in there with the top level guys already, but yeah, great performance there from Holloway and Fili. And then the Jim Miller fight, that was fantastic. I had Miller by round 1 sub. Didn't think he'd be putting his opponent to sleep like that. That was fantastic. Good to see him coming back, 2 first-round submissions in a row. For Miller, that was just fantastic to see. And as for Luke Rockhold over Tim Boetsch, my God, that was a guy who was minus 1,100, looking every single bit of it. Fortunately, picking him inside the distance was not a bad bet whatsoever. But man, to think that was just such an insane submission. The inverted triangle Kimura coming in super early in the beginning of the first round, that was just a steamrolling. I don't think Boetsch landed a single punch or any type of offensive grappling attempt, or really, that was just a massacre, a bloodless massacre by Luke Rockhold. What's next for him? He's jockeying hard for that Vitor rematch. I could see it. I say, hey, now that the TRT's been done away with, allegedly, let's give it a shot, see how that goes. If not, heck, give him Romero, like we were talking about earlier. He's climbing up those rankings. Ross had mentioned he's not the youngest in age, so let's fast track Romero. He certainly has the credentials, and he's been putting it all together. So that's a potential fun matchup right there.
Yeah, these 3 fights, Max Holloway and Andre Fili. I am a big Andre Fili fan. I love the work he's done. I think he's one of the most promising young prospects at 145. Max Holloway, I don't know if I even want to call him a prospect anymore because he's already here. He's already won many fights, and he only loses to the top level guys, the best of the best. Conor McGregor, Dennis Bermudez, Dustin Poirier. He beats everyone else. Andre Fili was winning this fight. He was showcasing really, really, really good striking and good grappling. And then he just got caught. He got caught with a guillotine choke. It happens. He got hurt because Max Holloway, you can't count him out at any point in the fight. And he's got that length. He's got that really, 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 really advantageous reach that he uses perfectly. He has a great jab. He has great boxing, period. He hurt Andre Fili. He had him up against the cage. He caught him in a guillotine, and that was that. He'll come back from that. Jim Miller and Yancy Medeiros. Jim Miller is fantastic. He has his ups and downs, but at the end of the day, he's fantastic. And he did exactly what he should have done against a guy who's still relatively green in Yancy Medeiros. A very promising guy, a very good striker who destroyed Yves Edwards in his last fight. But hey, that's Jim Miller. Jim Miller's a brick wall. You can't get past him unless you're one of the best of the best. He's one of those gatekeepers in the division. And Luke Rockhold and Tim Boetsch. Tim Boetsch is just not a top-level guy, and Luke Rockhold is. Luke Rockhold is top 5 in the world. He's absolutely fantastic. I want to see him fight Vitor again because I really think Vitor off TRT, that's a totally different fight. Luke Rockhold, 2 straight first-round finishes, 2 beautiful first-round finishes. I want to see him back up there, top of the division. Let's go, Luke Rockhold. Also, side note, just announced by the UFC, Fabio Maldonado stepping in, replacing Junior Dos Santos versus Stipe Miocic, stepping up to heavyweight on short notice. That dude is a warrior. Insane.
You gotta fucking love him. I mean, if you doubt the heart and tenacity of Fabio, just go back and watch him and Glover. Did he get his ass handed to him round 1? Yeah, but he roared back, and for the amount of damage he had took, he did not look bad at all. Thank you for letting us know. We will see Fabio versus Stipe. That actually will be a decent fight. But let's keep it rolling. The co-main event of UFC 172, Anthony Rumble Johnson upsetting Phil Davis. Davis was talking a whole bunch of junk about Jon Jones, and I actually feel bad for Phil Davis because Dana and the UFC kind of pushed him into talking a lot of smack. You know, Dana says, "Oh, I don't hear Davis asking for a title shot," blah, blah, blah. So Davis sort of takes it on himself and says, damn, I guess I'm going to need to start talking some trash. Talks a shitload of trash during the conference call. Jones did him dirty, you know, after the fights, shows clips of him losing, and then him, like, staring at the camera, sort of to taunt Davis. But, Davis showed a real lack of a stand-up game. You know, he kept going for the takedown. Johnson kept denying it. You know, nah. Davis couldn't get the takedown and almost looked unwilling to exchange with him. Just seemed like a complete fish out of water. But you can't discredit Rumble Johnson. Not only did he show off excellent takedown defense, the guy showed tremendous pace. For 15 minutes, his cardio was there. Not just throwing the knockout blow, but throwing, you know, combos with leg kicks and body shots. And you know, this is a guy who when he was younger, earlier in his career, I don't know who was telling him to cut from 230 to 170 or 240 to 170, whatever it was. The guy has really found his stride, and damn, we will definitely see what the ceiling is for Rumble Johnson soon. What did you think of this match? 30-27 across the board on the judges' scorecard. P-Money?
I fucking love this match. This was a fantastic co-main event. Rumble came in and really just shocked everybody in his UFC return. Really, if you look at it, it's almost the same thing as the Phil Davis-Rashad Evans fight. Anthony Johnson, not the same credentials and wrestling as Phil Davis. Not even necessarily the slickest grappler in comparison to Davis. You know, you put the two of them side by side, you would say, oh, Davis will submit Anthony Johnson for sure. But the thing is, Jake, as you had mentioned, Phil Davis just having a complete lack of any kind of stand-up game, as he has always had. That's really been his main thing. He just cannot get the striking game together. And Anthony Johnson, much like Rashad Evans, even though the wrestling isn't on the same caliber on paper, mixed martial arts wise, they've always put it together better. They have always put it together better in mixed martial arts compared to Phil Davis. The striking and the wrestling, mixing it up, punches, head kick knockouts for both Anthony Johnson and Rashad Evans. Plus they train together, plus the world-class training partners they have over there at the Black Zillions, who have seemed to turn around as a camp. They started out kind of like a bad joke. You know, they couldn't get a win when the super team first started, but they've certainly come around, and they're getting legit, and they seem to be growing bigger and doing big things over there. So, yeah, it was just an amazing performance from Anthony Johnson. The underdog came through big in this one. Fantastic fight. It was a savage ass whooping too. It was a decision, but Johnson was stuffing those takedowns and cracking him hard for 15 minutes. It was a brilliant fight.
Anthony Johnson, I'm trying to find the words to describe Anthony Johnson, because he's incredible. He really is. His black explosiveness is through the roof. It's at least 250%. He decimated Phil Davis. Decimated it. Oh my God! It was the beatdown of the year. It was brutal. Stuffed every takedown. Made him look like an assault victim. It was just one of those wow performances. One of those real breakout performances. And the guy, he got cut from the UFC because of his weight issues. He was a mid-tier welterweight who's now a top 5 elite light heavyweight. He's finally found his weight. He's come into his own. He found the right place to train, the right camp. He's training with the right guys, Rashad Evans, Tyrone Spong, Vitor Belfort. He's got the right coaches. And he's really coming into his own. He's a threat, a big threat, and he's a guy that can compete with John Jones and could beat John Jones. He has all the tools. He has it all. I don't even know what to say. I can't even find words to describe how I feel about Anthony Johnson, because he is remarkable, fantastic, next champion.
Next champion. Wow. Yeah, Jones does not have a easy road. He just got by Glover, but if he looks ahead, he has Alex Gustafsson, then Daniel Cormier if he's able to beat Dan Henderson, and then Rumble Johnson. I would not want to be in Johnny Boy's shoes. Speaking of Johnny Boy, he fought on the main event of UFC 172, fighting Glover. We'll wait until the news part to talk about the eye pokes, because I think that's sort of a topic on its own. But just sticking to the fight, what did you think? Jones, sort of, I don't know if this is his new MO, but when he went up against Chael, he used Chael's game plan to beat Chael, just used his wrestling, and against Glover, really pieced him up, used his striking very, very effectively. The first round had Glover in a clinch with Glover's back against the cage, pulled off a very, very wise little shoulder crank. It messed up Glover's labrum. He is going to need surgery. That's another thing we'll briefly touch on. But yeah, Jones getting the unanimous 50-45. Is Jones a point fighter now? I think so. I forget who said it. It may have been Goldie, but they were talking about Jones's knockout power. Like, what knockout power? He's never knocked anyone out. Even before he joined the UFC, he doesn't have knockout power. But he, to say he's not a good striker, I mean, Jesus Christ, the guy is a fucking dynamo. Just took Glover to task, beating him 50-45. P Money, I coughed, and it threw off my entire track of what I was going to say, so I'll just throw it to you. What did you think of this light heavyweight title fight?
I have that happen to me all the time, Jake. I know what that's like. I'm easily distracted, but this fight held my attention for 25 fucking minutes. It was, and I'm saying fucking every other word on this podcast. I don't know what it is. I'm feeling like I'm working fucking blue today. What can I say? Anyhow, this fight was spectacular. Jon Jones, he really just showed more from that arsenal. The shoulder crank, he's just a creative motherfucker in there. What he was doing, he was committing war crimes with those elbows up against the cage against Glover Teixeira. Teixeira was just throwing these fucking ferocious uppercuts and hooks. I mean, they were blasting each other for 25 minutes. It's funny. People talk about the Gustafsson-Jones fight like that was close. That wasn't a close fight. Gustafsson won that in a fucking landslide. This was a close fight. Teixeira made this shit. That was a fucking dog fight. Jones did win that rather handily, I must say. But they both got their licks in. Again, though, Jones, with those elbows, what he did, that was just a fucking massacre. Tearing Glover Teixeira's shoulder like that just mercilessly. You can hear him talking in the post-fight press conference about how he said he heard his elbow pop twice, and he said, "Cool." And I'm like, man, that's cold-blooded, Jon Jones. But hey, you know what? Embrace that shit. I know we're gonna bring this up later, but if you're gonna be fucking cold, if you're a cold-blooded, dirty motherfucker, be a cold-blooded, dirty motherfucker. Don't put on that nice front. Anyhow, that's a whole nother subject. This fight was just fucking crazy, and man, I can't wait for Jones Gustafsson too. The way they've both been looking.
Jon Jones is phenomenal, and I'm not breaking any news to anybody who's listening right now when I say that, but coming off of the Gustafsson fight, there were a lot of questions on everyone's mind about Jon Jones, a lot of doubts as far as what he can and can't do and who he can and can't beat. There were a lot of people who thought Glover Teixeira would knock out Jon Jones and take that belt away. I was not one of those people. I believed Jon Jones was going to beat Glover Teixeira. Styles make fights, and this just was stylistically a good fight for him, and he proved that. The first round, Glover gave Jon a little bit of trouble. I think Glover stole the first round. It was very close, but I think Glover stole the first round. But then from there, Jon Jones was just able to use his reach to keep Glover away and then put him against the cage and hit him with beautiful combinations and elbows. And he took some of Glover's best shots and just ate him. One of the smartest things he did was that shoulder crank, which completely obliterated his labrum. Glover needs surgery because he has a torn labrum because of Jon Jones' shoulder crank, which also took away from Glover's punching power. And Glover loves to throw that that cross counter. He loves to come up with that right and then throw that left. He throws it every single time. Almost every single combination he starts with that. So he was kind of predictable. Jon Jones, obviously, you don't want to be predictable against because he studies you in and out. Jon Jones, like I said, phenomenal. Let's see what happens against Gustafsson.
And speaking of Gustafsson, before we get to the bonehead of the week and then start breaking down news, really quickly, give me the % chance you think Gustafsson has to beat Jon Jones in the rematch the first time around. A lot of people thought Gus won. Jones did show a tremendous amount of heart winning those 4th and 5th rounds, But I scored at 48-48, like I do mini fights. But the second time around, Jones versus Gustafsson 2. What percent chance does Gustafsson have to pull off the upset? P-Money?
There's so many factors that come into play when trying to prognosticate this one. Wow, venue, what stage Mercury is in. It's I got to put it at a coin flip, 50-50.
50-50, yeah. I heard recently that we might see Jones Gus 2 in Sweden, which would be pretty sweet. Ross, what do you think?
Yeah, I gotta go 50-50. I mean, the fight was as close as it could get last time, in a lot of people's eyes. I thought Gustafsson won, but yeah, I'll give it 50-50.
We'll make it a clean sweep, 50-50 across the board. Jones Gus 2, that's probably going to be the fight of the year, 2014. Man, I cannot wait. And it's sort of a win-win because, Gustafsson wins, fuck yeah. If Jones wins, he's got to take on Cormier. And damn it, I've been saying since the year 2012, Cormier versus Jones is the fight I want to see the most. And, man, that would be awesome if we finally saw it. But let's move on. Let's get to this week's Bonehead of the Week.
Boom, 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 boom. Now tell me what you gonna do, but it ain't no better.
That's right, that beautiful interlude by the fucking Bone Thugs. But let's get to it. My bonehead is the Tough Producers. Dude, you gotta make a good product. And Tough Brazil 3, it's unwatchable, but I'm willing to let that slide because it's not made for American audiences. They apparently sort of tried to shift a lot of things toward Vanderlei. Coach Jamie Huey was telling us about filming. They had this. I didn't watch the episode because, in all honesty, Tough Brazil 3 I found to be unwatchable. But apparently they did this soccer type game in the mud or something. I don't want to get racist with it, but apparently Chael's team won twice. And they changed the rules each time just to let Vanderlei's team win. Coach Jamie Huey, who was there for the filming of Tough Brazil 3, go back and listen to the last few episodes of The Word on the Street, which you can find on the iTunes feed. Coach Huey did not have the best things to say. He had nothing but awesome things to say about the people there. Even Vanderlei's assistant coaches, the people who worked on Tough Brazil 3, but the people who produced it just made a really weird product. You have Ronda Rousey coming out saying she doesn't watch Tough because she knows that it's produced to be misleading. I mean, the season with Rousey and Tate doing Tough made everyone hate Rousey. I still don't get how. I think it's kind of crazy you're gonna hate Ronda Rousey because she's passionate and hate Ronda Rousey because she gives Misha shit back when Misha, tapes up pictures of her coaches and stuff around the wall. But aside from all that shit, what I've learned the last couple years is what you see on The Ultimate Fighter and what happens on The Ultimate Fighter isn't necessarily the same thing. I get you got to change a couple things up. You've got to make storylines fit. You've got to make it watchable. You've got to make it captivating. But man, my bonehead is the Tough Producers for sort of making making a show that misleads people. Fair and simple. P-Money, who's your bonehead?
Well, my bonehead of the week this week is the UFC as an organization overall. Most recently, UFC 172 main event, UFC light heavyweight champion John Jones said, I want my opponent Glover Teixeira randomly drug tested. Jones himself was also drug tested. So who did the UFC get to hire the drug testing but the very same people the NFL are currently embroiled in a lawsuit with over mishandling their drug samples? That's a fantastic job by the UFC, and it's so ironic. Every other press conference I see, is them talking about how they hired this CEO to be their COO of global expansion in this territory, in this market, and this and that. And yet there's just so many fucking blunders and stupid shit like this every other fucking week. Dana White's the main bonehead of the week on this fucking show, or the UFC or Zuffa in some way, shape, or form. And here they are again, keeping the streak alive. God bless them. UFC, you were my bonehead of the week.
My bonehead of the week is John Cena. Why the fuck do you get scared by a little kid? You can't just fucking move the little kid out of the way and walk down the steps and win the match. What the fuck's wrong with you? No, and then you get fucked, and then you lose because you're stupid and you don't push a little kid. What's a 4-year-old gonna do? What? He's gonna slap you in the face? No, fuck you, John Cena. You're my bonehead of the week.
Yeah, if you did not watch Extreme Rules and you don't know what we're talking about, John Cena about to win a match, and then this little stupid kid in like a little robe starts singing and scares the shit out of John Cena or something. Man, that was corny as fuck. Cena, the UFC, the tough producers. We aren't even gonna do a damn vote this week because they're all boneheads in my eyes. Our boneheads of the week. Let's move on. Before we talk, because I do want to talk about iPokegate. That'll be the next topic. But we do have to touch on last weekend. We didn't have any UFC events, but we did have 2 events. I want to touch on. Ross was doing media at one. I was doing media at another. Bellator 118 in Atlantic City and Glory 16 here in Denver, Colorado. Bellator 118 saw Joe Warren defeat Rafael Silva, win the interim bantamweight championship. Glory 16 saw a lot of fights. Errol Zimmerman winning a tournament to get him a spot in another tournament, which I thought was kind of lame. Zimmerman wins a 4-man tourney, which in turn puts him into another 4-man tourney, who the winner of that will get a title shot. But Errol Zimmerman, the most epic walkout I've ever seen live. This is a heavyweight. This is like a giant dude, this giant black dude wearing a skull mask, like a realistic skull mask, going ape shit. He sprints and leaps over the top rope. And was pretty emotional after his 2 victories over Ben Edwards and Anderson Braddock Silva. He dedicated his wins to his late mentor and friend Ramon the Diamond Deckers, who passed away a little over a year ago. Mark DeMonte winning the welterweight belt. It was kind of cool. Yao and Ross, you were doing press Friday night at Bellator 118. I was doing press at Glory 16. P Money, did you watch either of these cards? If so, what did you think? If not, what were you doing with your life that you missed them? Come on, son.
I must say, I'm incredibly envious of you two motherfuckers getting to cover these respective events. I was DVRing these shits, and I definitely watched them. Both good events, definitely satiated my combat sports needs in a UFC-less weekend. Bellator came through, some good knockouts there, good fights. Glory really stole the show for me, though, this weekend. Man, like you said, Errol Zimmerman winning that little tournament. The knee right hook combination, I think it was, that won both fights for him.
Raymond Daniels,
welterweight champ.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, the welterweight title fight. That was a fantastic fight. The Belgian cat, his name is escaping me right now, but I thought he won the split solidly. It was a super close fight. Sad to see my boy Pat HD Barry go out like he did. Love HD. Much respect for him. Unfortunate debut in Glory Kickboxing for him, but fantastic events. Really, definitely enjoyed watching both of them.
Yeah, I was gonna mention maybe the guy who stole the show Raymond Daniels. He lost his last fight, I believe, to Bazooka Joe Valentini, who's toward the top of the welterweight division. Raymond Daniels, one of these guys with a very unorthodox karate style, finishes your boy Francois Mbang with a two-touch switch 360 spinning back kick. Uses one leg to sort of get the range down, kicks his hip, and then does this spinning back kick of death, finishes his opponent. And I actually got a chance to speak with both him and Rico Verhoeven after the fights, and I can say about both of them, two of the friendliest guys you will ever freaking meet. I was joking around with Ross Allen, Yao, and all of them after the fights, saying I spoke with Rico Verhoeven for a few minutes after the event, and he was super nice, such a just giant dude though. He did one of those handshakes where like you reach out for a shake, and while you're shaking, he puts his other hand on the other side of your hand and makes a little hand sandwich. His hands were so big they like completely engulfed my like average adult male sized hand. It was like a father and a child. Fucking the guy is a monster. But yeah, Ross, tell us about your experience in New Jersey for Bellator 118, and what did you think of Glory 16 here in Denver?
Well, I'll start with Glory. I really
and
only
tell
have
us
one
about
thing.
your new lover.
My new lover.
Or at least the guy who kept staring at your camera whenever you took pictures.
The guy. Oh. Okay. Yes. Well, first off, Glory, I only have one thing. Thanks, Jake. I only have one thing that I want to bring up about Glory, and that's Pat Barry. Pat, I know you listen to the MMA podcast. I know you listen to the MMA Roundtable. I know you make it a point every week to listen in. I know you're listening right now, and I have one message for you, and that is please retire. You don't need to take any more punishment. You don't need to be knocked out anymore. You've suffered many knockouts in the last 3 years. I don't think your girlfriend or your future wife, your fiance, Rose, really wants you to take any more punishment. I don't think your family wants you to take any more punishment. Your fans certainly don't want you to take any more punishment, and I don't want you to take any more punishment. Retire because you have nothing left to prove. Become a coach and live a happy, successful life without having to be a vegetable. That's a sad reality of the sport. You get hit too many times, you could end up like that. So let's hope we don't get to see that with Pat Barry. As far as Bellator goes, Bellator was interesting. I worked the event as media. I was taking pictures. I was photographing the entire event. While you're photographing, it's very difficult to score fights and judge fights, so it was hard to pay attention and really digest all the action because I was just in work mode and just trying to handle all my business, so I wasn't really focused on the fights. I still have not had a chance to go back and watch the fights on TV. I have it DVR'd. I just haven't looked back yet. It was a fun night. It was a very fun night. Joe Warren seems to have a crush on me. He loves to stare at me. I've captured at least 9 or 10 instances, 10 different pictures where he is staring directly at me. At least 4 or 5 of those shots come from the press conference. He was talking into the microphone and literally staring me down. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not sure if he likes me or wants to fight me. I don't know what it is, but Joe Warren, I like you. If you want to defend your bantamweight title against me, I'll be happy to compete with you. You're about 5'6", I'm about 5'7". I think my flying knee is pretty good. Other than that, yeah, Bellator was fun. I'm going to fight Joe Warren.
Damn, you're going to fight Joe fucking Warren. Let's move on from Bellator and Glory, all that good shit. Back to UFC 172, the card we just broke down. John Jones, eye-poking gate. A little thread showed up on Reddit after Jones versus Teixeira, and it showed Jones's eye poke not only against Teixeira, but eye pokes against Rampage, Rashad, Lyoto, Shogun, pretty much everyone he's ever fought, showing Jones actively sort of. I mean, yeah, there is definitely a way which people brought up the fact, oh, I don't think Jones is being dirty. Look, he's just using his hand to push him away and keep range. All right, maybe he does that every now and then to sort of make it look like he's not poking, but when he pokes, he's actively turning his fingertips toward the eyes and trying to gouge the eyes. I not only think John Jones is a point fighter, which I mean, not when I call Jones a point fighter, I'm not saying he's not devastating. He is amazing. He has some amazing subs. But I think when it gets in that third, fourth, fifth round, Jones is thinking more about winning a decision more than he's thinking about trying to finish a guy. Most of his wins, most of his finishes come early on in fights. I mean, I think he had a fourth round win against Belfort. I think his win against Lyoto was second or third round, but yeah, he's had a lot of fights go the distance, but I want to talk about the eye poking. Straight up, do you think John Jones is a dirty fighter? P Money.
John Jones is dirtier than a urinary tract infection. He's dirtier than the clap. Rampage Jackson was recently on the Adam Carolla podcast talking about what a fucking dirty fighter John Jones is. And like you mentioned, there's evidence from years back that this is his MO. Apparently, like Rampage was saying on the ACP, this is how he's known amongst fighters. So hey, far be it from me to say any different. If Rampage Jackson is saying that John Jones is a dirty fighter, of course we're sure Rampage is known to, shall we say, use a little hyperbole every now and then, but I'll take him at his word when he says John Jones is a dirty fighter. It's not difficult to see when he's at that post-fight presser high-fiving Anthony Johnson for beating the shit out of Phil Davis. That's not a very Christian tenet, taking such delight in the misfortune of your fellow man, but anyhow, yeah, sure, John Jones, a dirty fighter, doesn't mean he's not a fantastic champion, but yeah, why the fuck are you feeling out the distance with your fucking fingers outstretched like that? You don't punch people with your fingertips, you try finding your range with a jab or something like that after you're getting warned by the ref incessantly.
Yeah, John Jones is a dirty. I could use another word that would be racist, but that's not my opinion.
Whoa.
Nah, he's
Hail.
He's a dirty fighter. He's smart, but he's dirty. Sticking your fingers out to keep a guy at bay is not using your reach. It's, I'm going to use my reach to threaten to poke you in the eye, because then you won't come in, because no one wants to get poked in the eye, because it's kind of impossible to fight when you're getting poked in the eye. There's nothing, there's no way you can glorify or make right with what he's doing. It's just, it's dirty.
Yeah, and if he did it a couple fights, maybe it's a coincidence. If he did it a few fights, maybe it's a coincidence. This happens in every one of his fights. He pokes your eyes until he gets warned, and then he stops. Which, I mean, I'm not saying I am above it. I mean, is it a good strategy? Maybe. I mean, shit, it might actually be a decent strategy. If you know the ref is going to warn you before he takes a point, then why the fuck not? I mean, we know Jones isn't concerned about, what's going to happen to his opponents. I mean, he throws what he calls an elliptical kick, which he is the only fighter who actively tries to blow out other fighters' knees, maybe other than Husam or Palhares. But I heard Rampage Jackson recently on the Adam Carolla show, and Page is like, yeah, I mean, I definitely, I think he was saying he was training with Glover to train for Jones a little bit, and said that he was showing him how to move around and work while Jones is trying to kick your knee the other way. I mean, you know, give the guy props in a way, I guess, maybe for just, I mean, the guy, dude, does everything he needs to win, but it just goes in the opposite, direction as you would like a fighter to act. He's not acting sportsmanlike at all. We will move on though to to Jones's opponent, Glover Teixeira, who, call him a dirty fighter all you want. That shoulder crank was beautiful. That was totally legal and a genius move, which I got downvoted to fuck on Reddit. I posted something like they posted a GIF of Jones's shoulder crank, and I said something like, "Man, it's a shame because the guy is a genius, yet he lets the stuff like the eye pokes overshadow that." And there must have been a lot of Jones fans on Reddit that one day. But yeah, I mean, I'll make the same point now. It's a shame. Jones is brilliant, and the stuff like the knee kicks and the eye gouges take away from stuff like this shoulder crank that was absolutely beautiful. Glover to undergo surgery on his labrum. Really quickly, who next for Glover Teixeira when he gets back? You look at the light heavyweight division. You got Phil Davis also coming off a loss. Shogun Hua. A bunch of guys. I think on the Rogan podcast they didn't know about Glover's surgery, and they threw out a fight between Glover and Rumble Johnson, which I don't think we'll see in the immediate future, but like further down the line, if that's a possibility, what a matchup that would be, Rumble Johnson against Glover. But who next for Teixeira after he recovers from shoulder surgery? P-Money?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that Glover and Rumble. That was the fight that I was kind of thinking right off the top of my head. But there's just a host of matches you could do. Jimmy Manuwa is also coming off of a loss, so it kind of makes up in that sense. They're both high-ranked prospects who just, one's coming off a loss to Jones, the other's coming off a loss to Gustafson. It makes sense right there as well. So that's a good potential fight. Phil Davis, that's another good fight for Glover. But it's definitely, I don't see him falling too far down the ladder in his next fight with whoever he ends up getting matched up with.
It's going to be a while before we see Glover, so it's really hard to say that there's one specific person who should fight him. Ranking-wise, Phil Davis makes sense. Both guys coming off of their losses, the same event, co-main event and main event, respectively. That, to me, would make the most sense, but who knows what the division's going to look like when Glover's back.
Yeah, it will definitely be a little while. Shoulders can be really tricky. We have Kane rehabbing from shoulder surgery. I saw Brandon Thatch at Glory 16. He's been on the rack for a while. Should get an opponent in the next couple months, but still coming back from shoulder surgery. 4 or 5 more topics, so we're going to do these lightning round style. Anderson Silva cleared to train MMA again, and my question is very simple. Will he be a UFC champion again? P-Money?
No, he will not. Top tier always, but I do not believe he will reclaim the belt.
At 185 pounds, Anderson Silva will never be UFC champion. At 205 pounds, Anderson Silva will never be UFC champion. At 170 pounds, Anderson Silva could be UFC champion. Will he? Probably not. So, no, I don't think Anderson will ever be UFC champion again.
Damn, yeah, I think the odds are stacked against him. Moving up, I think Silva has a very hard time with John Jones, a very hard time with Daniel Cormier, a very hard time with Alex Gustafsson. Just guys who are all way bigger than Anderson. As far as moving down, I mean, one 170 would probably be his best bet, but as far as I know, he's only really talked about 170 in the context of fighting George St. Pierre. So, do I think he can beat a lot of these contenders at 185? For sure. I think him and Jacare would be a great fight. I think he wins. I think him and Vitor would be a great fight. I think he wins. I think he and Lyoto would be a great fight. I still think Anderson wins that one, but he's lost twice to the champion, and if they make it happen a third time, I think it turns into to 3 times. Moving on. The UFC looking to make Mark Hunt and Roy Nelson in Japan. That would be an obvious, huge fight, literally and figuratively. 2 guys, big guts, big knockout power. Who you got in that one? Theoretically, I got Roy Nelson. P-Money?
Yeah, that's a barn burner. Roy Nelson definitely holds the grappling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu advantage in that one. Mark Hunt, although, I mean, Roy Nelson, you can't discount his striking, super heavy hands, good boxing. But Roy Nelson does have that K1 caliber striking, just a touch finer, I'd say. Hands just as strong, I would also say. It's all about, can he get Roy Nelson, can he keep the distance and stop Roy Nelson from smothering him? I think if he can keep it standing, he's got a pretty good chance because he also showcases a ridiculous chin. And he could potentially, wow, and Roy Nelson too. This is a fucking amazing fight. I don't even know how to go with this one. Gun to my head though, I say Mark Hunt.
Yeah, it's a fun fight. Roy Nelson has shown that when he faces the upper echelon of the division, he shits the bed. But when he faces the lower level of the division, or someone like Big Nog who has no chin, he knocks him out cold. Mark Hunt has a chin, and he's also, in my opinion, in the upper echelon of the division. So I think Mark Hunt beats Roy Nelson. I think Roy Nelson doesn't use any grappling whatsoever, yet again, because he never does. And we end up seeing a striking bout, which is won by Mark Hunt.
So 2-1, Mark Hunt takes that one. What about this fight matchup? We're going to see Gunnar Nelson and Ryan LaFleur go against each other July 19th. I cannot wait for this one. Gunnar Nelson just has completely fucked everybody he's gone up against grappling wise, and Ryan LaFleur, they keep giving him stiffer opponents. It was Court McGee, then John Howard, and he's passed every test. Both of these guys, young, up and coming welterweights, and one of the hype trains is about to get derailed. Who you got? I got, even though I think Ryan LaFleur is an absolute beast, I got Gunny Nelson in this one. Who you got, P-Money?
Yeah, we're going from the old guard here to the young up-and-coming bucks. Holy shit. I have to take Gunnar Nelson in this one. Ryan LaFleur has looked amazing technically. Definitely a proficient mixed martial artist in all areas of the game. Same with Gunnar Nelson, though. And, again, I think he's got more credentials on his side. His last performance was insane. Fighting, I think it was Akhmedov, who was coming down from 185, who's got credentials out the ass, I believe, in combat sambo. And, Gunnar Nelson just absolutely decimated him. He has also taken on increasingly difficult opponents and handled them with relative ease. And, this is just going to be a great fight. I think Nelson looked fantastic coming off of that, even though it was a long layoff. And with a little bit of momentum on his side, I think he'll be able to take this one against LaFleur.
This is a very, 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 very close fight and a very, very, very good fight. I am leaning towards Ryan LaFleur in this one. I think Ryan LaFleur is unbelievable. Before coming to the UFC, he was 7-0 with 7 finishes, and then he had a long layoff before he came to the UFC. Actually, I think he had one fight outside of the UFC after his long layoff, and then he came in the UFC. And since then, he hasn't finished a fight, but he's dominated his opponents. Not so much dominated, but he is. He's pretty much dominated his opponents. He looked great against John Howard. He looked great against Court McGee. Two very, 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 very good 170-pounders. And he has all aspects of the game. He's got great wrestling. He's got great jiu-jitsu. His striking is very good. Gunnar Nelson is being touted by Renzo Gracie as a future champion, the future 170-pound champion, and he may very well be. Ryan LaFleur could very well be a future 170-pound champion. This fight is so good, so beautiful. I don't want to see it because I don't want either guy to lose. I think they're two very, 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 very good prospects, two guys who will be title contenders one way or another. The loser of this fight's still going to be a contender. I think in about a year or two, both these guys are going to be within the top 5 to 7 of the division. I truly think there are big things in store for Ryan LaFleur and Gunnar Nelson, but I do think Ryan LaFleur just edges this one out.
All right, 2 more fights to break down, then we get to guess that tweet, the game show that's sweeping the nation. Conor McGregor, Cole Miller, it's going to be on the same card as Nelson versus LaFleur. It may, in fact, be the main event of that Dublin card. Everyone's going to be hyped as shit to see Conor McGregor take on Cole Miller. They've already started having a war of words this Monday on the MMA Hour. So that was yesterday on the MMA Hour. McGregor versus Miller. McGregor the striker, Miller the grappler. Who you got?
I'm going with the hype again. I'm taking Conor McGregor in this one. He's just looked outstanding. I mean, we were talking about Holloway earlier, Conor McGregor's last opponent, and Conor McGregor, the only damage he incurred in that fight was the damage he sustained himself, tearing his own ligaments in his knee. Other than that, he's just looked effortless in the UFC. Cole Miller, he's been around a long time. Coming off a super win against Sam Cecilia, he put Cecilia to sleep. Something real nice. I did pick him to win that fight, so I wasn't too surprised when he did ultimately win. But he's been up and down, and Conor McGregor, I like what I've seen from him. I like his movement, his striking. He's training that grappling with Gunnar Nelson, so he's got to have a little something. So yeah, I'm gonna roll with McGregor on this one.
I gotta go with Conor McGregor. Cole Miller's looked very good in his last couple fights, and he seems to be putting it together at 145 pounds. But Conor McGregor is a monster, and he's going to pick up right where he left off. He's going to finish Cole Miller within 2 rounds, TKO, KO, whatever the hell he wants. He's Conor fucking McGregor. What else do you expect?
And to quote one of his many quotes on the MMA Hour, which definitely you got to check out the last episode. They go back and forth. And you know what? I'll do it in an Irish accent and embarrass myself and butcher it. But I feel like I'm allowed to do a shitty Irish accent because I do have Irish roots. McGregor said, "As soon as that man steps off the plane, he's stepping into a battlefield. He knows it. I know it. He opened his mouth. I don't even give a shit about him. No one in the UFC gave a shit about him. 18 fights in the UFC, or 17, I don't even know. And the motherfucker couldn't even get off Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg rang and tried to get that man off Facebook. Nobody cares about him. He opened his mouth. He should have kept quiet. There's a Celtic saying, many a times a man's mouth broke his nose. And this is one more of those saying. That man opens his mouth, and I'm going to break his nose." Says just a bunch of hilarious shit, saying, "Cole, I'm going to break you. You're too slow. You're the slowest motherfucker I've ever seen. You're the slowest in the division." Just a lot of words. It was a really fun interview. Had both of them on at the same exact time, and honestly, it would take me another 5 minutes to read all these hilarious quotes. Final fight to break down. We touched on it briefly last time around, but it wasn't official. It's official now. August 2nd, UFC 176 at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. I almost said Chaz Aldo. Wow. Jose Aldo taking on Chad Mendez. The rematch. It's official. Like I said, August 2nd. Who you got in this one? Aldo won the first fight, but it was a little controversial as to pull off that knee that he ended the fight with. He sort of grabbed the cage and turned himself around, which is an illegal maneuver. I still think Jose Aldo is a better fighter, but I think Mendez poses him more trouble than any of his recent opponents, because not only does Mendez have the cardio, the one thing we've sort of wondered about Aldo, he has the wrestling, and he's really shaped up his striking. Obviously, Dwayne Bang Ludwig not still with Team Alpha Male, but while he was there, Mendez, I think he finished pretty much everyone via first round KO, an absolute beast. So before we get to guess that tweet, final bit of news, final fight to predict aside from the cards coming up. Who you got in this one? Aldo Mendez 2, and what chance are you giving Mendez to pull off the upset? P-Money?
Well, I got to give Mendez a decent chance to pull off the upset. He's looked a lot better since rebounding from that loss to Jose Aldo, the only one in his career, finishing everybody but Nick Lentz since that loss, and against increasingly tougher competition. Percentage-wise, what chance do I give him? Obviously, I'm going with Jose Aldo. I got to go with Jose Aldo. What percentage am I giving Chad Mendez? I'll give him a 30% chance. I will.
This fight is so close. When they fought the first time, Chad Mendez was a wrestler fighting in the octagon. Now he's a mixed martial artist fighting in the octagon. He's added a hell of a striking repertoire to his game, thanks to Dwayne Bang Ludwig. He finished 4 guys in a row. Four straight knockouts, three straight in the first round. 2 of them over cans, but then Darren Elkins and Clay Guida, and then
both of them iron chins,
yeah, and then beating the crap out of Nick Lentz. Chad Mendez is an animal, and he is the true number 1 contender. It's a good thing that he's getting his title shot, because he does deserve this before Cub Swanson, in my opinion. I don't know who's going to win. I think it's really close, and if this was 2 years ago, I picked Aldo the first time, but this is a totally different fight now. We got 2 totally different guys, and the first fight means nothing today, so I'm not going to pick a winner, and I can't give a percentage chance for either guy.
Yeah, it's really tough to a pick. I mean, any result isn't going to shock me. A decision going either way, a finish going either way. This could end any way. And before we get to guess that tweet, I did want to read a tweet that we had sent to us just now. A tweet from our good old pal Ramses. Ramses tweets in, "Good to hear Ross Finkelstein on the MMA Roundtable right now before he is tragically killed later tonight. If you haven't been following, tonight is May 6th. Tonight is the night we've been building up for months. Tonight on the Word on the Street, Ramses, the Aunt Jimmy Show, and Ross Finkelstein, E before the VL, go head to head for the gold." Ross, you have any comments about Ramses in tonight's performance before we get to guess that tweet?
Jake, this has been 5 months in the making. This has been a story that has been building for the entire year, for all of 2014. Not only that, it began 1 year ago when I debuted on the Word on the Street. And I immediately became Ramses' cash cow. I became the face of the Word on the Street. I became the champion. I defended my belt more than anybody in the history of the podcast. I destroyed you. I destroyed Yao. I destroyed Alan. I destroyed every single person who crossed my path. And tonight, there's only one person left for me to destroy, and that is the man who built me up. That is the man who gave me the platform, and that is the man who I will bury live tonight. That is Ramses. That is the host of the Word on the Street podcast. But after tonight, he will no longer be the host of the Word on the Street podcast. He will be nothing but illegal.
Damn. Yeah, Yeah, it is gonna go down. One of them will die tonight on the Word on the Street. 10 p.m. Mountain Time, but let's face it, nobody the fuck lives in Mountain Time. Midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific. Follow the Aunt Jimmy Show. It will be on Ustream. It will be live. One man will leave the podcast champion. The other man will leave the podcast dead. Let's get to guess that tweet. Let's change the mood from super dark and someone's gonna die to guess that tweet. Thank you for listening. And if you're not familiar with guess that tweet, it's very simple. I read a tweet. P Money and then Ross will guess on who tweeted the tweet. If one of them get the tweet right, they get a point. If neither of them get the tweet right, I get a point as host. That's pretty much it. Currently, Team MMA Podcast is ahead of Team MMA Mental 25-21. So let's get straight to it. Guess that tweet. Are you gentlemen ready?
Yeah.
I'm fucking ready.
Hell yeah! This is like the Intercontinental belt, and then later tonight is the World Heavyweight Championship. So Ross, you get 2 belts in one day. Let's get to the first tweet, and we'll do P Money then Ross every time just to keep it simple. This first tweet, quote: "I hate poachers. By hate, I mean I want them all to die. We only get one Earth, and we are majorly screwing it up. This person showing no love to the poachers. Was it Tim Kennedy, Felice Herrig, Shayna Baszler, or Colton Smith?" P Money.
Wow, someone expressing a viewpoint I agree with 100%, yet I can't help but feel like they sound like a douchebag. Whew, and we got a panel of blowhards to choose from. I will go with... Oh, shit, Tim Kennedy.
E before the L.
What are the choices again?
Tim Kennedy, Felice Herrig, Shayna Baszler, or Colton Smith? Who wants all the poachers to die?
That sounds like something Tim Kennedy would say.
So you are both going with Tim Kennedy. And you are correct. It was Tim Kennedy. You both get 1 point. I still have 0 points because you both got it right. Let's move on. I'll throw in a Glory 16 tweet. This is from a Glory fighter who fought on Glory 16, and it's a very short tweet. "Loving Denver already," smiley face. Was it Josh Johnsey, Errol Zimmerman, Mark DeBont, or Raymond Daniels? P Money.
Boy, that's a tough one. Don't really follow any of those guys, unfortunately. So I'm just going to take a stab at the dark. I'll say Mark DeBont.
I'll go with Raymond Daniels.
Raymond Daniels with the highlight KO. Josh Johnsey stormed back after getting knocked down in round 1. Was it Raymond Daniels? No, I'm sorry, Ross. It was not Raymond Daniels. But P Money, was it Mark DeBont? That's right, it was Mark DeBont. P Money gets his 2nd point, going for his 5th championship on Guess That Tweet. We will move on to the 3rd tweet, and there will be 5 regulation tweets. If it's still tied up after 5, I do have an overtime tweet prepared. Alright, I'll switch gears. Go from the Glory card over the weekend to the Bellator card. Quote: "I need a forklift to put my balls in the Bellator cage, then use the forklift to get my opponent out of the cage after I knock him out." So he needs a forklift to get his balls in the cage and get his opponent out after he gets the KO. Was it? Pardon me. Was it Andrei Koreshkov, Liam McGeary, Thomas Vasquez, or Joe Warren? P Money.
That definitely ranks up there for stupidest tweet I've ever heard in my life. I have to give it to Joe Warren by default.
Yeah, it's like, how is he going to get his balls out of the cage if he's using the forklift to move his opponent? Who knows? Ross, who tweeted this?
the greatest tweet ever, actually, and that is 1000% a Joe Warren quote. And the fact that you would even put Koreshkov on that list is hilarious. Just the thought of him saying that would be funny, but yeah, it's Joe Warren.
Was it Joe Warren? It was Joe Warren. Joe Warren, you both get another point. Leaving me in the dust. P-Money with 3, Ross with 2, me with 0. P-Money is perfect tonight. Let's move to tweet number 4. This is a response to Bitch Kohea. Bitch tweets out something that says basically 4 minus 1 equals 3. And this was one of the 4 horsewomen responding, saying, quote, "Congratulations, you passed first grade," in response to 4 minus 1 equals 3. Who tweeted it? Was it Ronda Rousey, Marina Shafir, Shayna Baszler, or Jessamine Duke?
Wow, this is fantastic. That this is what women's MMA is bringing to the UFC. No, just kidding. Love WMMA. Jesus Christ. Who do I have to choose from again?
The 4 horsewomen, Ronda Rousey, Marina Shafir, Shayna Baszler, Jessamine Duke, saying, "Congratulations, you passed the first grade."
I'll say it's the one that nobody knows, Shafir.
Ari or Marina Shafir, whatever the fuck her name is. Ross, was it Rousey, Shafir, Duke, or Baszler?
It was Marina.
It was Marina. Did you see the tweet? Are you absolutely sure?
Yes, I did see the tweet.
And it was Marina Shafir. Not too much drama in that one. P-Money with 4, clean sweep. Ross with 3. Ross, this is the last regulation tweet, so you got to guess something different than P-Money if you want to force overtime. Here is the 5th tweet, and it was a fighter from UFC 172. He tweets out, "Here's a link to my walkout t-shirt. Buy it with your money." Was it Ike Valley Flag, Andre Feely, Tim Elliott, or Danny Castillo?
Man, that is a funny-ass tweet. I like that. Tough one for the final regulation tweet. I'm just going to throw up a Hail Mary and say Feely.
What were the choices again?
Isaac Valley Flag, Andre Feely, Tim Elliott, and Danny Castillo. And you got to pick different than Andre Feely if you want to force overtime.
Danny Castillo.
All right. Was it Andre Touchy Feely? It was not Andre Feely, meaning if it was Danny Castillo, we're going into overtime. Was it Danny Castillo? No, it was Tim Elliott. Let's go ahead and knock out the overtime tweet for shits and giggles before P-Money gets his victory speech in. The final tweet, "Did you eat Mexican today?" Hashtag Cinco de Mayo. That's it. Did you eat Mexican today? Hashtag Cinco de Mayo. Tim Kennedy, Alan Belcher, Ike Valley Flag, or Eves Edwards? P-Money?
Oh boy, I actually did eat Mexican on Cinco de Mayo. Very courteous for them to inquire. I'll say that's the talent.
Ross?
He seems to have been right like 5 times tonight. I'll go with Belcher too. Getting a phone call?
Yeah, I'm playing all sorts of weird sound effects. It was Alan the Talent Belcher. P-Money. Oh my god, you went what? You went like 5 for 6, I think. Tell us, who do you want to dedicate tonight's victory to? Congratulations. You are this week's champion.
Well, thank you, Jake. You're a gracious host. Ross, you're a gentleman in defeat. Pleasure doing battle with you both, gentlemen. I'd like to thank everybody for making this possible. Myself for my greatness, of course, which can't be spoken about enough. All of my comrades for making me look so much better by comparison, and really all those whose backs I stepped on and broke to get to where I am today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, P-Money. And let's move on. We're going to close this podcast out after we break down these two cards. The next roundtable won't be till May 27th. Won't be for a few weeks, but UFC Fight Night 40, Matt Brown taking on Eric Silva. Let's talk about that card. Like we do with all of them, let's start with the prelims. The prelims on Fight Pass, a welterweight bout between Anthony Lapsley and Albert Tumanov. Justin Salas taking on Ben Wall at lightweight. Manny Gamburian versus Nick Lentz in what might be the best Fight Pass fight that has come by in a while. Nick Lentz is a fucking killer. Manny Gamburian is a fucking killer. Order Fight Pass now, or else you're gonna miss a good fight. We got Eddie Wineland, who in recent memory fought for a title, fighting on the first fight on Fox Sports 2. This prelim is going to be on Fox Sports 2, the main card on Fox Sports 1. Wineland taking on Johnny Eduardo. Jan Cabral taking on Zach Cummings at welterweight. Kyoji Horiguchi taking on Daryl Montague at flyweight. We all know who the Westland Eagle will be rooting for there. And a middleweight fight between Ed Herman, Rafael Natal, both underrated middleweights. Which fights stand out to you there, P-Money?
Well, that's a pretty solid slate of fights right there. Off the top of my head, Eddie Wineland versus Johnny Eduardo. I really like that fight. Eduardo's got a vicious Muay Thai style. If you go back and watch some of his old fights on YouTube, even in MMA, I want to say he had a couple leg breaks against some of his opponents, similar to the Weidman Silva leg break. So he's got those well-conditioned Muay Thai shins. Eddie Wineland, he's just been looking like a beast with his strength and conditioning lately. A really solid grouping of prelims overall, though. Definitely like Nick Lentz versus Manny Gamburian, like you said. Definitely a good matchup. Lentz has been a beast since moving down to 145. Manny Gamburian, he always has that solid punching power, the good judo style. So definitely some good scraps lined up.
Yeah, this is a fun card, and we got a fun preliminary card on this card. It was Fight Pass prelims, like you said, Manny Gamburian versus Nick Lentz. That's a fantastic fight to headline the Fight Pass prelims. The Fox Sports 2 prelims, Eddie Wineland and Johnny Eduardo is an awesome fight. Johnny Eduardo, one of the staples at Nova União, and Eddie Wineland, one of the top 5 guys at bantamweight in the world right now. Jan Cabral, I'm excited to see his second fight in the UFC. Zach Cummings had a little bit of trouble with the weight cut going into his last fight. He was supposed to fight on the China card, and he ended up getting pulled the day of the weigh-ins because he was medically unfit for it. So I hope his weight's in check, and I hope he doesn't have any problems this Saturday or this Friday trying to make weight. Kyoji Horiguchi versus Daryl Montague. Daryl Montague sadly had to, or Daryl, whatever the hell his name is. Keep calling him Darrell, and I've done it since I don't even remember. He ran into a train named John Dotson in his UFC debut. Kind of shitty fight to get for your first fight, going up against basically the second best guy in the division, or third best guy in the division, depending how you sort that out with him and Joby One Kenobi. Yeah, that's a fun flyweight fight. And then the headliner on Fox Sports 2, the prelims, Ed Herman and Rafael Natal. Great middleweight fight. Great grappling fight right there. Two very good grapplers. So I'm excited to see that one. Good prelims.
Definitely. Sorry, I got caught up reading a tweet there from our boy Kevin Black at Technics88, tweeting at the MMA podcast, God bless you all, apart from the Jew. He's going down like a fancy boy on a cupcake. Word on the street. And then he posts 4 emojis, one of a fist, then another one of a nose, then another one of a snowflake, and then another one of the German flag. Ross, you have a rebuttal to that?
The emojis said it all. I need no words.
He's gonna punch you, then snort cocaine, then represent Germany. I can't hate on any of those things. Let's move on to the main card. Brown Silva, just breezing through it. He actually just tweeted again saying, "You son of a bitch," calling out the rammer, the hammer, and then more noses and snowflakes and German flags. Oh man, follow Technics88. He's a funny fuck. Let's get to the main card though. Enough with doing cocaine and representing the country of Germany. 5 fights we're going to break down on the main card. Chris Carriasso versus Louis Smolka. Soa Paleli versus Juan Potts. Neil Magny and Tim Means at welterweight. Eric Koch taking on my boy Darren Cruikshank at lightweight. And at middleweight, Costa Philippou taking on Lorenz Larkin. Both of these guys trying to sort of pump life back into their UFC careers in the co-main event. What stands out to you on this one? P Money, I'm looking forward to Coke and Cruikshank.
Oh shit, yeah, Coke and Cruikshank. Of course, Cruikshank gets all sorts of love from the MMA podcast, MMA Mental family. Eric Koch also, Rufus Sport has been good to MMA Mental. We want to be good to Rufus Sport. Love the guys out there. Eric Koch definitely looked real good against Rafael Oliveira in his return to 155 pounds, his first showing in the UFC. And also, I want to say in the WEC as well. I believe he's fought exclusively at 145 under both banners. Great fucking scrap right there. Yeah, there's just all sorts of goodness on this one. Jesus Christ. I can't even remember what else we got, but Juan Potts and Soa Paleli. I have no clue who Juan Potts is, but Soa Paleli, he's been knocking fools out left and right. And then, of course, Matt Brown and Eric Silva. Jesus Christ, that's just going to be an epic fight. That's got finish written all over it.
I'm actually jealous. My brother is going to be at this card. He has tickets, so he will witness all of this greatness live. Flyweight fight between Chris Carriasso and Louis Smolka. That's awesome. Carriasso's been a staple in the flyweight division. He was a bantamweight for years, dropped down to 125, where he should be because he is a small dude. Luis Smolka, he had his UFC debut earlier this year against, who the hell did he fight? He fought like some Russian dude or whatever that he was not supposed to win, and he absolutely dominated. He looked fantastic. Soa Paleli back in the cage. I'm not Soa Paleli's biggest fan, but, you know, he is what he is. Ruan Potts is the EFC Africa heavyweight champion, making his UFC debut. So let's see what he can do. That's an interesting heavyweight fight, but once again, outside of the top 10, the heavyweight division is just atrocious. Neil Magny and Tim Means. Tim Means back in the UFC less than a year after being cut. He was cut last July, fought twice, won both those fights with finishes, and now finds himself back in the UFC on short notice at 170, which is where he should have been before. He was fighting at 155, and that's just too big of a weight cut. The dude's 6'2". He's not meant for 155. Eric Koch and Darren Cruikshank is fucking awesome. That is an awesome striking matchup. I like Eric Koch there. I think he's found the right weight class at 155. He's not cutting too much weight. He looked awesome in his fight against Rafael Oliveira, destroying him within 1 round, I think it was, or 2 rounds. I'm not sure which one he got the finish in. Costa Philippou, co-main event against Lorenz Larkin. Costa's a local guy. He was a part of Team Saralongo, training at what is now Power MMA, but he moved to Belmore Kickboxing Academy, which was the worst mistake of his entire career. I don't know if he's going to win this fight. If he was still training at Power MMA, I absolutely believe he would win this fight. That's where he should be training, but he made a pretty stupid career choice. I don't even know if he wants to fight anymore. From what I've heard from certain people, the dude's just not really in it anymore. So there are no guarantees in a Costa Philippou fight. And I don't know if I broke down the main event before we were supposed to break it down, the co-main event before we were supposed to break it down or not, but yeah, I'm rambling on and on.
Nope, you were right in breaking down Costa versus Lorenz Larkin. Did I hear you want to jump in a second ago, Pat?
Oh yeah, no, that was just the Louis Smolka fight. I believe that was Alptekin Ozkilic, the Turkish Delight he was facing in his debut. I do seem to remember he was the betting underdog, and yeah, he was super fucking impressive in that fight. I can't believe I forgot to glance over the Smolka Carriasso fight. That one's definitely going to be sick, but I believe that was his debut fight.
Yeah. Both of them good fighters. Carriasso, more fights under his UFC belt. I think he had 4 fights as a bantamweight, 5 fights as a flyweight, 3-2. Those 2 losses to 2 very decent flyweights in Jussier Formiga, a guy who, 3-4 years ago we thought was the best flyweight in the world, and John Moraga, who also got a title shot shortly after fighting Chris Carriasso. That definitely worthy of being on the main card on Fox Sports 1. Let's get to this main event. Oh my god, I cannot wait for it. This is I mean, looking at the main events of recent UFC Fight Nights, this is UFC Fight Night 40 at the US Bank Arena in Cincinnati. Ross's brother will be there. There will be a Finkelstein in attendance. Matt Brown and Eric Silva, of all the main events of UFC Fight Nights in recent memory, this is one that captivates me the most. Might not have the most title implication to it, but Matt Brown, Brown was originally slated to take on Carlos Condit. Had to back out with a back injury. We ended up seeing Woodley and Condit, but Matt Brown really is somehow still underrated. And one thing you can say looking at both guys' records, Jesus Christ, I can't talk today. When they go up against lesser talent, they absolutely blow them up, but they've had a little bit of struggles with top level opponents. Brown is on a crazy win streak. He's won 6 in a row. Before that, though, he actually went on a little 1-4 slip, losing to Ricardo Almeida, Chris Lytle, Brian Foster, and Seth Baczynski. Since then, though, since his loss in November 2011 to Seth Baczynski, he hasn't looked back. Like I mentioned, winning his last 6 fights, 5 of those 6 winning via KO or TKO, taking on Eric Silva, who's only on a 1-fight win streak. He lost that fight to Dong Young Kim late last year via KO. Sort of on a win-loss thing, but I don't know. I'm to be totally honest, looking at the odds, I'm shocked. I think Eric Silva's like minus 230 or something. I'll look up the current odds now, just for anyone listening. Yeah, Silva minus 240, Matt Brown plus 200. I thought if anything it would be like even odds. Brown a little bit of a favorite. I don't know. A lot of love coming in on Eric Silva, but I think the world of Matt Brown. I think Matt Brown gets it done. I think Matt Brown KOs Eric Silva. And Brooks, if you're listening, which Brooks and I the last month have been going back and forth about this single fight. Brooks, if you're listening, fuck you, A. And B, Matt Brown is going to defeat Eric Silva, and I'm going to get your avatar on the MMA Playground. What do you guys think? The main event, Brown-Silva. I can't wait for this war. B-Money?
Fuck yes. This fight's going to be great. I'm actually going to go just dump a ton of money on Matt Brown right now because that's crazy. He's plus 200 against Eric Silva right now. He just got knocked out by Dong Hyun Kim. I mean, I guess I've kind of got the same thing the bookmakers have. I love Matt Brown. No matter how many times he wins, for some reason, I just can't get him out of my head as mid-level talent, bottom of the top 10 at best. And like I said, I've been a fan of Matt Brown since the Ultimate Fighter days, but for some reason, that's just kind of where I've got him in my head. But these last 6 fights, he's been beating everybody. And a few of these people, Mike Pyle, I mean, there's a few fights where he certainly could have lost. I mean, what's Eric Silva going to do? Stephen Thompson couldn't knock him out. He went 3 rounds with Stephen Thompson. I mean, granted, Eric Silva probably has a better ground game than Stephen Thompson, although that's a potential fight that I'd like to see. Anyhow, I'm getting off track. This fight's just going to be crazy. I have to give the edge to Matt Brown. It's hard for me to pick his fights. I always want to pick against him. I feel like now that I want to pick with him, he's going to lose. But fuck it. I've got to take the Immortal in this fight. Eric Silva, he looks like a good young prospect, but he's too inconsistent for me to go with him in this fight. I've got to take the Immortal, also by knockout in the main event.
I don't know why Eric Silva is the betting favorite in this fight, and anyone who is listening to this podcast right now should go to your local bookmaker, whatever, sports book, and put some money down on Matt Brown, because Matt Brown is going to defeat Eric Silva, and you can make a whole lot of bank on this fight.
Triple your money.
Matt Brown deserves some respect, and he's not getting it. And after he knocks out Eric Silva, he will get the respect he deserves. The dude is on a tear. He's finishing everyone. The only person he couldn't finish was Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is also on the rise at 170 pounds. Guys like Stephen Thompson, Matt Brown, Ryan LaFleur, Gunnar Nelson, those are the names you're going to be hearing at the top of the 170-pound division within the next year. So Matt Brown walks away with the W. Easy.
That's a clean sweep, 3-0. We all think Matt Brown is going to win. I'll pester Brooks, see if he wants to call in and get a little bit of shit for it. Final topic of the night, we're going to break down UFC 173. It has been a long roundtable. Thank you, of course, to the listeners for tuning in, and, of course, to Pat and Ross for joining us on this, what will probably be about 2.5 hour long roundtable. Follow them on Twitter, Sweet Pappy Jones and Ross Finkelstein, E before the L. Let's get to UFC 173 like we always do. We're going to break down the prelims first. 7 fights, 3 on the Fight Pass, 4 on Fox Sports 1. This is going to be May 24th at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Originally was supposed to be Weidman Machida. Weidman had some knee problems, needed to push it back to July. So let's get straight to it. The prelims. We have 3 fights on Fight Pass. Sam Cecilia taking on Aaron Phillips. David Michaud versus Li Jingliang. And Anthony Njokuani taking on another tough, or I think he was a tough alumni, Vince from Hell Pichel. Going to Fox Sports 1, Ross's boy, Ally Aquina, fighting out of that Serra-Longo fight team. Going to lead off the Fox Sports 1 card against Mitch Clark. At bantamweight, Chris Holdsworth, one of Yao's favorite fighters, taking on Chico Camus. Tony Ferguson taking on Katsuori Kikuano. And another lightweight fight. We got Francisco Trinaldo taking on Michael Chiesa. What do you think about those 7 fights, P-Money?
Yeah, I like those fights. Perhaps not as much as the Matt Brown, Eric Silva card. That one seems stacked up just a little bit better. But I do like the 173 prelims. There's definitely some good names on there. I don't have the card right in front of me. Let's see.
Yeah, a couple decent names.
Yeah.
You know, the 2 that stand out to me are Ally Aquina and Chris Holdsworth.
Yeah, Ally Aquina, he's definitely a good one. Pichel, I believe. You said he's taking on Njokuani. That'll be a good fight. Pichel, he was a tough alumni. I believe that was tough 15. The one where let's see, Tough Live. I believe that was tough 15. I want to say he was on that one with Crookshank and Vic, and that actually had a pretty decent crop of talent going back. But yeah, that's if memory serves. But pretty decent slate lined up for prelims. Should be one of those ones, kind of a fight for the troops status. If you think back, I always liken it to the very first fight for the troops event. One of those fights, maybe not necessarily a whole lot of huge names, but they do such a good job with the style matchups. They can pick two guys that maybe necessarily a lot of people haven't heard of, but they just put the styles together right to make a good matchup. And I definitely see a lot of that going on for the prelims here.
There are a lot of really, really good fights on this preliminary card, but I'm only going to talk about one and only one person in particular, and that's Al Iaquinta. It's no secret that I am biased towards Al Iaquinta because he is a staple here at Power MMA, at the Serra-Longo fight team, and I see him all the time. So, yeah, Al Iaquinta, he's fighting Mitch Clark. He shouldn't be fighting Mitch Clark. He should be fighting someone a lot higher ranked than Mitch Clark. Dude's on a 3-fight winning streak. He's looked fantastic in all 3 fights, winning all 3 decisively, pretty much all 3 rounds in all 3 of those fights. Or not all 3 rounds, pretty much 2 of the 3 rounds at least. I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm going off. I've been off my game today. I've been saying some weird things, not really too focused, and it's not very good. But anyway, Al Iaquinta, yeah, look out for him because he's going to do big things in the UFC lightweight division. Mitch Clark doesn't stand a chance against him. This is another tune-up fight, I guess, for Al. Al's going to finish him, get his first UFC finish, and by the end of the year, he'll be fighting someone close to the top 10. Maybe not a top 10 guy, but someone within the top 15 of the division because you can't deny Al Iaquinta for very long.
Yeah, Al is one of these guys. Is he currently ranked at lightweight?
Not yet.
Not yet. After a win here, he just might be. Yeah, we'll definitely see. To me, the former tough champion Chris Holdsworth, I'm really excited to see how he fares against tough opponents. Chico Camus might not be the best bantamweight in the world, but he's definitely a tough guy. And I did briefly want to share, any fans of the MMA podcast, you obviously know Yao, Yao's training log. We've got him on every couple weeks. Back Saturday night for the Floyd fight, Chris Holdsworth tweets, quote, "I think based on MMA judging, Maidana would have won, but this is boxing." Yao tweets back at Holdsworth, Yao fucking being the troll he always is. "Well, guess what, dummy? It is boxing. What the fuck are you bringing up MMA for? Do us a favor and delete your Twitter, clown." Holdsworth tweets back at Yao, "No one wants to witness your ugly ass capture medals, trophies, and belts, earn a black belt, and then talk some shit, you clown." So, word to the wise, don't fuck with Chris Holdsworth on Twitter. Enough of that fucking silliness, though. Let's get to the main card. This podcast has gone long enough. God damn it. Let's get to the first 2 main card fights. Jamie Varner taking on James Krause at lightweight, and Takeya Mizugaki taking on Francisco Rivera at bantamweight. Who you got in both of those? I have Varner and Mizugaki. Varner is one of these guys. He'll show up one fight and look like a fucking world beater with top flight wrestling. Another time it's just he falls flat. Varner, Krause, Mizugaki, Rivera. Who you got in both of those?
Both of those fights, you can make a case for any of those 4 fighters winning their respective matchups. Varner was this close to beating Abel Trujillo in his last fight. He was piecing him up technically, doing a good job of avoiding the power. He had Trujillo hurt, got sloppy, came in, got caught with the power, stopped getting technical. So that's kind of the question mark with Jamie Varner. How's he going to bounce back from a finish like that? That was such a fucking violent knockout. James Krause, he's been up and down himself. So I think I'm going to have to go with Jamie Varner just by sheer background, high-level fight experience, et cetera, et cetera. Takeya Mizugaki, Francisco Rivera, that's another close one. Mizugaki, a true veteran. He's been looking good in his last few fights as well. I want to say he's got a pretty good streak going himself, maybe about 4 fights, if I'm not mistaken. I want to say that's what he's at right now. But, yeah, he's looking good. Francisco Rivera looking good as well. He's got multiple KO finishes in his last couple fights, I want to say. So that's going to be a great fight. I'm actually kind of leaning towards Cisco in this one, but Mizugaki, again, he seems to be on a little career resurgence, so I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the W in that one.
Yeah, these are two really close fights. Jamie Varner, I was there for his last fight when he fought Abel Trujillo, and that was absolutely crazy. He was looking very good, and out of nowhere, next thing I know, he's dead. James Krause didn't look so good in his last fight. He had the whole groin kick thing, and then the body kick, and the whole controversy there. I thought it was a legal kick, and I thought he was legitimately finished. I think Jamie Varner beats James Krause. I think he's just a little bit better, and I think the wrestling will play a big factor here. Takei Mizugaki and Francisco Rivera, another really good fight. Francisco Rivera has been on a tear with his power. He was supposed to fight... who was he supposed to fight last? He was supposed to fight Rafael Assunção back at UFC 170, and then he got injured with a hand injury, so he was out of that fight. That was going to be fun. I was looking forward to that. I think he beats Takei Mizugaki, although I think it's a lot closer than a lot of people might think it is. So, yeah, two fun fights.
Definitely, and that leaves us only with 3 fights to break down before we end this extended edition of the MMA Roundtable. Lawler Ellenberger, Henderson Cormier, Barao Dillashaw, the 3 top fights, UFC 173. But we're going to take a step back really quickly, because you know what? The man I called a silly bitch just a few minutes ago decided to call in, decided to defend his view. Brooks, thank you for calling in. Follow him on Twitter at the MMA Addiction and Brooks_B as well. Brooks, we all picked Matt Brown to defeat Eric Silva. I even mentioned that I'm going to own your avatar for however long because you're being a silly bitch, and for some reason you're picking this bum, Eric Silva, to beat Matt Brown.
How the fuck does the whole panel pick Matt Brown? How does that happen?
Because Matt Brown is a better fighter than Eric Silva.
He's a better fighter.
Did I pay him off? Maybe I paid him a little bit, but yeah, give us your breakdown. You not only think Silva's going to beat Brown, you seem sure of it.
I'm pretty damn positive. I think he's just all around the better fighter. I don't see how anybody could say any different. Matt Brown is a tough motherfucker. I'll give him that. He's gritty. He's on a hell of a streak. But and I'm not saying Eric Silva's beat the greatest of competition, but Matt Brown has been beating the mid-tier guys himself. He hasn't beaten anybody, top of the ladder that, is saying that Matt Brown's top 10, which I don't know if in the rankings right now he's top 10, but, I hear a lot of people saying just off their opinion that he's top 10. I just don't see how he's top 10 yet until he starts beating some higher ranked guys. But as far as Eric Silva, I mean, he's just athletically he's better, he's quicker, he's faster, he's more diverse, he's got great submissions, and he's got good striking. Matt Brown's just kind of a straight fighter. He can just come in and throw the punches and take some punches, but he's never been known for great submission defense. And we've seen some great submissions and slick transitions from Eric Silva. I'm not seeing how Matt Brown's going to be able to pull this one off. I think Eric Silva's got more ways to win. I've heard that Eric Silva doesn't have, great head movement or whatever, as evident in the DHK knockout. But, that's one mistake that he's made. I mean, I don't think he's ever been knocked out before that, and he was dominating that fight with Kim up until that point. And I know Kim had fought Brown, I think it was in 2008. That was a long time ago. It was a close fight. And I think they both came a long way. I know that MMA math doesn't really mean much, but, they both lost to Kim, but I think that Silva was dominating that fight up until that last punch. And, I mean, just either way, I don't think there's any way around it that Silva is just a way more well-rounded fighter. Matt Brown's just that kind of gritty dude that comes in and knocks people out and doesn't take no shit, but Silva is just way more diverse. He's just athletically a better fighter.
Yeah, Silva could very well win. It could happen, but Silva, is sort of in a place where he hasn't been tested much. The only real stiff tests he's gotten is John Fitch, which it was a great fight, but Fitch ended up winning a unanimous decision. And Kim, which honestly, if Kim and Silva fight 10 times, I think it's really even. I think it's like 5-5. I think Silva maybe wins like 6. But the KO was definitely something I don't think we see happen many times if they fight 10 times. But I honestly, you talk about Brown's level of opponents. I think Brown has fought better guys than Silva. Silva's beaten Takanori Sato, somebody who's not even good enough to have his own Wikipedia. Jason High, who's not bad, but he's by no means a top welterweight. Brenneman, who has since moved down.
I agree with you that Matt Brown has beat the better fighters up until this point. But at the same time, I think that Silva just hasn't had his opportunity yet. I know the Fitch fight happened, and that was, Fitch is a dominant wrestler. After that fight, obviously, he took a little bit of a skid, but up until that point, he was the second best welterweight in the world, And it's just, I think that I just don't see it. I don't see how everybody's on Matt Brown here. I'm sorry. You guys got me so flustered with this. I've been trying to convince everybody that it's ridiculous to pick Matt Brown. The guy is, he doesn't have the submission defense. I'm going to go ahead and call that he's going to get submitted in this fight with either a rear naked choke or a guillotine. I'm having a tough time picking between the two, but I'm going to go ahead and I'll put that out there.
Yeah, you do bring up a good fact that Matt Brown has 11 losses on his career. 9 of them are by submission. But I don't know, just Jordan Meehan, he knocked him out. Mike Pyle, who honestly I think Pyle beats Eric Silva, but that's a whole nother issue.
Oh,
Chaos
come on,
Pyle,
man. Hey, one more thing
he
about
mops
the
the
John Fitch
floor with
Silva.
Stephen Thompson. Sorry.
Are we gonna see Matt Brown come in and try to wrestle fuck Eric Silva? No way. That's not fucking Matt Brown. Matt Brown's gonna come in and throw the fuck down, and that's gonna be his downfall. Because I think technically Silva is the better striker, and I think that since he's coming off of a couple losses, I know he's got his most recent fight was a win, but I think he is hungry, and I know Matt Brown's hungry. We all know that, but I don't think he's going to be as foolish, and he's going to be a little bit smarter coming into this one.
I mentioned, and sorry for Pat and Ross, we will get back to UFC 173 in 1 minute. But the last thing I want to say, and then Brooks, I'll give you your piece, and then if you want to stay on to break down the top fights of UFC 173, you can. Stephen Thompson is a guy that Brown knew could outstrike him, and Brown was very smart to, pretty much just wrestle the shit out of him. Pretty much mopped the floor with Stephen Thompson at UFC 145. I think Brown's game plan will probably be to feel Silva out if he feels like he can strike with Silva to keep it standing, and if not, Eric Silva better hope he's got a little bit of takedown defense. And I'll let you get I'll let you get the last word in, and then we'll get back to.
I appreciate it, Jake.
173, yeah, definitely.
No, I was fucking out mowing my lawn, goddammit, and I get this bullshit coming across that everybody on the panel picked Brown, so I had to come in and get my say. You make a great point about the Stephen Thompson fight. Stephen Thompson, I think, undoubtedly is the better striker. I don't think there's any question in that over Matt Brown, but he did what he had to do to win that fight. So that's a great point. But I'm not backing down from what I'm saying. Stephen Thompson doesn't have much of a ground game up until this point. He's mainly a kickboxing guy, and so if Brown wanted to take it down to the ground, there's not much Thompson could do about it. Where I think Silva has way more well-rounded of a game. So I just don't see it being an issue. I just think Silva's on the come up right now. I think he's a future title challenger at least. I'm not going to go as far to say champion, but I think he'll definitely be challenging for the title sometime in the near future. And that's all I got. I'm going to fucking walk off with that and go mow my lawn and put my headphones in and listen to the rest of your guys' show. I appreciate it, though.
All right, Brooks, thank you for calling in, giving a little bit of love to Eric Silva. We'll definitely catch you later. See you, dude.
Have a good one, guys.
Peace. And that was
Take it easy,
Brooks.
Brooks.
Giving his 2 cents on Eric Silva. If you want to catch that fight live, the main card will start at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Going to be one of the few UFC cards I don't watch live. I got to go fucking work, make some money. All right, let's get back to it. A super long podcast again. Thank you, gentlemen, for staying on. Let's get straight to it. A welterweight fight. Robbie Lawler and Jake Ellenberger. Lawler was a win away from the title, was not able to beat Johnny Hendricks. A lot of people thought Lawler won that fight. He undoubtedly damaged Hendricks a lot more than Hendricks damaged Lawler, which was weird because the same thing happened in the last welterweight bout where the guy with a ton more damage ended up winning. But regardless, Lawler is back on the road to try and get to that championship fight again. He's taking on Jake Ellenberger at welterweight. I think Jake's got good striking, belongs in the top 10, good wrestling, but Robbie Lawler is really in the prime of his career. You know, he's been around, he's been doing this for a long time, but I really think he's finally hit his stride, and I wouldn't be shocked at all if he fights for a title again in 2015. Lawler Ellenberger, who you got? P Money? Sorry.
Oh man, this is just going to be a fucking absolute war of a fight. These guys are absolute beasts. So many guys kind of cut from the same cloth. Ellenberger, Lawler, you got your Tyron Woodley, Johnny Hendricks, super strong wrestlers, super strong strikers, good quality technical striking with super fucking dynamite power. Jake Ellenberger and Robbie Lawler, this fight's going to be fucking bananas. I can't even believe it. This is just going to come down to who's got the better chin, I believe. They both got the wrestling. They both got the striking, crazy power. I want to give it to Robbie Lawler. I want to say he's got just a little bit better diversity of strikes with some of his kicking game. And he's, in spite of his loss against Johnny Hendricks, and again, you know, depending on how he scored that fight, I personally did have Hendricks winning, but that was he still has momentum on his side. He's still in quite a resurgence in his career. This is going to be a fucking madhouse of a fight. I got to go with Robbie Lawler, though.
This is a fun fight. It's good to see Robbie Lawler rebound after the close fight with Hendricks. And so quick. I think Robbie Lawler wins this fight. I think Robbie Lawler beats Jake Ellenberger down. I like Jake Ellenberger. I don't have any ill will towards Jake Ellenberger. I think Jake Ellenberger is one of the best in the world. I think Robbie Lawler, though, is like a different animal right now. And I think when the pressure is put on Jake Ellenberger, he tends to struggle a little bit. We saw it in the third round of the Diego Sanchez fight. We saw it when Martin Kampmann finished him after being dominated in the first round. He's beatable, and Robbie Lawler has that style. He comes forward, he puts a lot of pressure, and he hits hard. He might be the hardest hitter in the division. We don't know. He beat the shit out of Johnny Hendricks in their fight. So let's see what happens. I think Robbie Lawler gets it done. I think Robbie Lawler gets it done by TKO.
Lawler by finish. Another sweep. We're all taking Lawler. We'll probably see sweeps in the main and co-main event because they are pretty one-sided, at least if you look at the lines in Vegas. A light heavyweight fight for the co-main event between two Dans, Dan Henderson and Daniel Cormier. Cormier with a win, according to Zuffa and Dana White and all them. Cormier will earn a title shot beating Dan Henderson. Henderson, not necessarily the same thing, but we can't always take Zuffa for their word when they talk about title shots. I think they said Jacare earned a title shot when he beat Yushin Okami, and he might need to still fight another 1 or 2 times before he gets a title shot. But Hendo versus DC. DC apparently next in line after Gustafsson for that shot against John Jones in the light heavyweight strap. Who you got? Obviously, if anyone has a puncher's chance, it's Dan Henderson and his H-bomb right hand. Who you got in this one, though? I have Cormier winning a decision. Uses his wrestling. This is the second time in the UFC we've seen two Olympians go at one another. The first one was earlier in the year in February. Rousey, judo, McMahon, the wrestler. This we have two Olympic wrestlers, Henderson and Cormier. P Money, who you got?
I'm kind of disappointed at stumbling up at the athletic commission that decided this was a fair contest. Really, I feel so bad because, man, Hendo, he's my boy. Got a lot of love for Dan Henderson, but holy shit, how does this fight get made? I mean, he just barely scraped by Shogun in their rematch, and he's had a couple split decision losses, got knocked the fuck out by Vitor Belfort. I mean, he's been hurt, especially in his last two fights, and he's on the wrong side of 40 in the sport, and being 40 in the sport. Taking on Daniel Cormier, who's coming down from heavyweight. It's just this. I have Cormier winning this just all day. If this were 10 years ago, Dan Henderson in his prime, I'd probably still be taking Cormier in this fight. It might even be by finish. Probably second or third round.
Yeah, Cormier, I'm looking on best fight odds on five dimes, is minus 1050 to Dan Henderson's plus 550. Maybe the first time in MMA, if not MMA, probably the first time in UFC history where a fighter has been favored greater than minus 1,000 in two straight fights. Obviously, his last fight, his debut at 205 against Pat Cummins, he was something crazy like minus 1,300. Once again, will be a heavy favorite going into this one. Whether he's as extreme a favorite as Vegas thinks he is, I don't know if I agree with that, because Hendo always can land the H-bomb. Ross, what do you think? Hendo taking on DC.
I hate this fight. It's a horrible, horrible fight. It's a completely one-sided fight. Daniel Cormier is on the rise. Dan Henderson's on the decline. Dan Henderson looked horrible in his last fight. He had his chin completely shattered by Vitor Belfort, and it's completely gone. His heart's still there. The chin is not. Daniel Cormier is going to be able to hurt him. He has tremendous power in his hands, and he has even more power at 205 pounds. I think Daniel Cormier knocks Dan Henderson out or TKOs him. I really don't see anything left in Dan. Tank. He got a miracle punch in against Shogun, but he's got nothing left.
Yeah, and once again, a clean sweep. We're all taking Cormier there. Cormier, a better wrestler at this point, a better striker too. I think Cormier scores a TKO in the first round, to be totally honest. Moving on, the main event, the last topic. Thank you one more time for holding in there. 2 hours, 33 minutes in. Renan Barão taking on TJ Dillashaw. Barão opened at 450, minus 450. Since then, it's swung all the way out to minus 925. Huge favorite over Dillashaw, plus 550. Dillashaw, he's one of these guys. He, Mendez, Benavidez, their striking they were guys who were known mostly for just dominant wrestling, and their striking came along so much under Dwayne Bang Ludwig. Dillashaw, a lot of people were saying Rafael Asunciao deserved the title shot, but I think he was injured or something, so it was given to TJ Dillashaw, going to be taking on Renan Barão, who kind of makes up that trio of pound-for-pound kings alongside John Jones and Jose Aldo. Barão looking for, I think this is officially his second title defense, if I'm not incorrect. He won the interim belt against Faber, then defended the interim belt against McDonald and Wineland. Wasn't able to get an undisputed defense of his championship until his most recent fight, taking on Uriah Faber this past February. 3 months later, he's back in the cage to take on another Team Alpha Male guy and TJ Dillashaw. And I have Barao all day in this fight. Honestly, Dillashaw, anyone can win a fight, and that's the reason both of these guys are going to step in the cage. But I don't see what Dillashaw can do to solve the puzzle of Renan Barao, who is one of the only, if not the only, puzzles we've yet to solve. The pound-for-pound kings, all of them have shown a weakness. Aldo has shown he can gas out in the later rounds. Jones showed against Gustafsson that he is not perfect. Renan Barao, nobody has really seemed to solve the puzzle that is, how do you beat this dude? Maybe we see it solved at UFC 173, but I highly doubt it. I got Barao all day. What about you, P Money?
Absolutely, Jake. I've got Renan Barao. I have no clue how TJ Dillashaw is going to win this fight. As much as he's improved as a mixed martial artist, if you look at when he was on The Ultimate Fighter compared to his fight with Mike Easton, he put together an amazing technical striking display against Mike Easton. Really put it on him, but I don't think he's really got enough pop behind those shots. He's got some good wrestling, but I don't know if his submission game is up to snuff to roll with Barao like that. And then look at how good Uriah Faber looked coming into the fight, into the rematch. He already took Barao the distance. Then he comes in for the rematch looking better than he ever did, and he just gets massacred in the first round. It was just oh man, he was just beat from pillar to post in one round, handily just shit stomped. I don't know what TJ Dillashaw offers any different. Man, yeah, Renan Barao, I fully expect him to do work, and man, I wish I could have gotten on him at minus 425.
The three best fighters at Team Alpha Male, in no particular order, are Chad Mendes, Uriah Faber, and TJ Dillashaw. And TJ Dillashaw may very well be the best out of the three of those guys. He's young, he's hungry, he's improving fight to fight drastically. Just the difference between the Rafael Assunção fight and the Mike Easton fight is huge. I believe he beat Rafael Assunção. Many people, as a matter of fact, I think the majority of people believed that he won that fight. Very close fight, but he won that fight. He was robbed of a decision. And he came back in the Mike Easton fight and just absolutely dominated Mike Easton. And Mike Easton's a very good striker, and he dominated him on the feet. His kickboxing, he looked like he should be fighting for glory. That's how good his kickboxing looked. He looked like a glory kickboxer. I'm not going to say K1 because we know it. First term everyone goes to is K1, but now we got to go to glory. It seems so weird. Call him a glory kickboxer. Anyway, yeah, he's got like glory level kickboxing, and that is huge. Something you need when you're fighting Renan Barao. You need to be able to strike with the dude for at least a little bit because you're going to stay on the feet for a little while. You're not getting him to the ground so easily. You need some time to figure out what the hell you're going to do. And that's very interesting. I think he matches up with Renan Barao stylistically better than Uriah Faber did, because Faber's stance is a lot different. TJ Dillashaw comes out there standing like a kickboxer, and he's going to strike like a kickboxer. Uriah Faber stands like he's looking for like a big uppercut or a big overhand right and the takedown. He doesn't stand like he's ready to kickbox and strike. He's got a very, very weird stance, and it just plays into Renan Barao's game. TJ Dillashaw is a very different fighter Can he beat Renan Barão? Yes, he can beat Renan Barão. Will he beat Renan Barão right now? Probably not. He's probably not ready. He's still very young, and he still has a lot that he needs to do. But this fight's closer than most people are making it out to be. And I think we're going to see something very interesting. Who knows? We could see Renan Barão come out and destroy him, because Renan Barão is just that good. Renan Barão is amazing. He's never been beaten. He's never been challenged. He's destroyed everyone he's ever fought except for the first guy he fought. He lost that first fight in a split decision, and since that day he went, fuck that, I'm not losing anymore. And he's won every single fight, and he's dominated everyone. He's dominated world champions, and that's incredible. But could TJ Dillashaw be the next John Jones? Could he be the next Phenom? Who knows? His only loss is to John Dodson, and it was a fight that a lot of people thought was stopped early. TJ Dillashaw thought it was stopped early. And look what Dodson's doing. Dodson could be a champion at 125. Dodson could be a champion at 135. We don't know. He said he wanted to be champion at 125, 135, and 145. So anything can happen in this fight. I'm picking Barão, but people can't count out TJ Dillashaw. He's amazing.
Dude, that was a hell of a breakdown. You're making me think Dillashaw is gonna win. I mean, yeah, excellent points. And the point you brought up, I like the most. The guy progresses so much fight to fight, and really the glory metaphor. You're totally right. I mean, even top guys in MMA, there's such a skill gap between the top kickboxers of mixed martial arts and world-class kickboxers. Dillashaw throws with just amazing technique, amazing quickness, and you know what? Paired with the wrestling he has got, maybe this is something that finally will challenge Barão. Because another point, Barão just has not been challenged since joining the UFC. He's run through everyone. After breaking that fight down, though, I think we're done. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to follow us, you can follow us on Twitter at The MMA Podcast or visit themmmapodcast.com. One more time, P-Money, where do we find you? And thanks again for sticking it out. And what I'm pretty sure is the longest roundtable we've ever done, and I think the longest podcast so far of 2014. This one was a doozy.
This was one for the record books, Jake. It's been a pleasure doing the roundtable with you as always. It's been great doing it with Ross as well. Follow your boy P Money on Twitter at Sweet Pappy Jones. Hit me up on Instagram at Sweet Pappy Jones, and I'll let you know what's cracking in the lot. I'll let you know how to stack them chips, put you up on them good bets. Holla.
Holler at your boy P-Money at Sweet Pappy Jones. Ross, where do we find you? And one more time, tell us what's going down tonight on the Word on the Street, midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific.
Tonight, I will be arrested for homicide. Follow me on Twitter at Ross Finkelstein, E before the L.
Damn, he's gonna bury Ramses. This was the MMA Podcast. You can follow the MMA Podcast. This was the MMA Roundtable. Jesus. You can follow the MMA Roundtable, the MMA Podcast, and the Word on the Street, all on iTunes. Like I said, visit the MMA Podcast. Click the iTunes banner. And that's pretty much it. Follow our friends, Westland Eagle AH, C. Lowenstein, MMA Mental, DJ Jeans, The Aunt Jimmy Show, Yow_the Truth. We all love the shit out of you, and we're glad you love the shit out of us. And if you hate us and you just listen to me for 3 hours, then I don't know what the fuck's wrong with you. Thank you. We'll see you in a few weeks for the roundtable. We'll see you later tonight for the Word on the Street. The championship belt is back up on the line, and we'll see you tomorrow night for the MMA Podcast. Till then, we'll be back. Cocksuckers, whatever. See ya. We gone.